any backlift. But he is.
Tyson Fury, Floyd Mayweather, Canelo Alvarez. Just hearing these names makes you think money and the hundreds of millions of dollars, pounds or Saudi riyals in boxing. But that's at the top. At the bottom, it isn't quite the same. Even for those on the rise, there's not an awful lot of cash in the boxing world. And if you're just starting out, well, it can be a very costly exercise indeed. But don't take my word for it. Here's the former European champion, talkSPORT's Spencer Oliver.
You're turning professional and you're boxing, let's say, York Hall on a non-televised fight. You have to sell tickets to earn any money, but you have to cover the wages of your opponent as well. So if you don't have the ability to be able to sell enough tickets, you effectively have to pay to fight.
A far cry then from Jake Paul facing Mike Tyson in 2024, when the purse was reported to be around £48 million. But the vast amounts of cash lining the top dog's pockets isn't the norm in a typical fight.
Let's say you're lucky and you get between 5 and 10 grand. You're going to get 10 grand max for that. 10% goes to the trainer, 25% goes to the manager. Then we've got the tax man to pay as well. So we're cutting that money in at least half. So now you've got 5 grand for a 10-week camp. So you're talking about a guy here earning, he might be clearing 500 quid a week. How do you support a family on that? So boxers chase the dream. And, you know, there's probably 2% of them that actually make it.
So say you do make it and you start to rise up the ranks. Strikers Boxing, a training academy, says the mid-tier fighters can earn more, somewhere between £10,000 and £50,000 a fight, depending on record, profile, opponent and popularity of weight class. It's only at the top level does the real cash start flowing in, with the top-tier professionals, i.e. those going for titles, earning 6 figures a fight. Something else you'll have heard of is the terms prize fighter or journeyman. A prize fighter is, as it sounds, someone who picks up fights where they can and gets a nice big check if they win. Journeymen are the fighters who take on up-and-comers, effectively used for experience in the ring.
Good evening and welcome to Danny Kelly's Trans-Europe Express. I'm Kevin Hatchard, sitting in for Danny. Alongside me tonight, the Norwegian sensation, Lars Sivertsen. Thrilled to have him back on the show. So much to bring you over the next 3 hours. We've had a groundbreaking coaching appointment in Germany. Real Madrid season could be on the brink of collapse. We've had a war of words between two icons of Italian football, and we'll look ahead to the quarterfinals of all 3 major European competitions. Plus, we'll keep you up to date with the twists and turns at Augusta. Rory McIlroy looking to defend his US Masters title. It's all coming up on Trans-Europe Express. Lars, how are we tonight?
Oh, I'm feeling very good. We have so much to get through, Kevin, and I will concede I am also a little bit tickled by the Masters. So there's a lot to keep in your brain at the same time, but I think we can get through it together. I am excited. You know, they've put us in charge, Kevin.
Can you imagine that?
Did you ever think this would happen? Well, we've all kind of been guests on this. They put the lunatics in charge of the asylum here. This is tremendous.
The kids have taken over the school. What's going to go on over the next 3 hours? Keeping an eye on some of the scores across Europe in terms of the game in Ligue at the moment, Lars, between Lyon and Lorient. How's that one going?
Quentin Tolisso has just made it 2-0 to Lyon, which we'll get to in the French segment, but that is a potentially significant goal in the race for a Champions League spot in Ligue, with Lyon not entirely out of it, with them putting 3 points on the board here.
Yeah, in La Liga, Villarreal are winning away at Athletic Club. They're well on course to qualify for the Champions League. Massive game in Italy. Como were 2-0 up against Inter, but Inter have turned it around completely, and they've just gone 3-2 up in that game at Como, and if they win, they'll go 9 points clear at the top. Now, one of the themes of the show tonight is going to be how Real Madrid are struggling, and we do have a poll for you. That poll is, who will be the manager of Real Madrid next season? Will it be Alvaro Arbeloa, who currently has the role, Jurgen Klopp, who's distanced himself from it time and time again, Didier Deschamps has been linked with it, the current France boss, or could we see a sensational return for Carlo Ancelotti? If you want to get involved on our social media channels or text to the number 81089. That's 81089. But we're going to start by paying tribute to a man who is a true great of European football. Mircea Lucescu has sadly passed away at the age of 80, just days after trying to take his home country, Romania, to the World Cup. He was a football obsessive, someone who captained Romania at the 1970 World Cup, swapped shirts with Pelé, 56 years after that, was still involved in top-level football. And Lars, we are dealing with a truly remarkable man.
No, an incredible man, an incredible career. You know, like you say, captained Romania at the 1970 World Cup, won the Romanian League 7 times as a player, and definitely was one of those players who you wonder if he had been allowed to move abroad, you know, because this was behind the Iron Curtain back in the day. Maybe he would have had some adventures. As it was, he lived and stayed and coached in Romania until the Ceausescu regime fell, where he moved to Italy and had a good spell there. But I think, you know, the sort of legend of Lucescu as a coach really kind of gets going around the turn of the millennium, actually, where he goes to Turkey. And I mean, he does other things, and he's well known for his time at Shakhtar, but I do want to flag up. So 2002, leads Galatasaray to the title, is still somehow fired because that's Turkish football for you. You can win the title and still lose your job. So what does he do? He goes across town, takes over at Besiktas, wins the title with them, beating Galatasaray in the penultimate game of the season, which is such a flex, you know, tremendous stuff. And it's after that he ends up going to Shakhtar, which is what I think a lot of people will now remember him for.
Yeah, the thing that's really interesting about that Galatasaray spell as well is that they'd had success before, but he managed to win that UEFA Super Cup. They beat Real Madrid to lift the trophy, so one of their great successes. And as you say, he gets to Shakhtar Donetsk in 2004, and we mentioned that he'd captained Romania in that 1970 World Cup against Brazil, swapped shirts with Pelé. He always said that he never washed that shirt. The grass stains were still on it. He treasured it above anything else. And in partnership with their owner, Rinat Akhmetov, who had plenty of money to spend, they were able to come up with this business model to bring in these great young Brazilian players, and they became a phenomenal team.
Yeah, so Shakhtar weren't, maybe not a fairy tale as such, because as you mentioned, Rinat Akhmetov was like an oligarch, a very rich guy. But I think the project that he created there in Donetsk was really interesting, because he had this combination of bring in, of course, they had a good academy, they had great Ukrainian players, but they also brought in some of the better, you know, Eastern European players. They had the great Croatian right back Dario Srna captaining the team for a long time. They had Henrik Mkhitaryan eventually. But they combined that with this pipeline of Brazilian talent, many of whom ended up in the Premier League as well. Fernandinho, we remember. Willian, we remember. And so they created this team that was this real mix of Ukrainian, Eastern European, and Brazilian players who repeatedly made an impact in the Champions League. I mean, people who've been watching football for a while will remember seeing this very good Shakhtar team. And then sort of peaked, I suppose, winning the Europa League in 2009. And that Europa, or it was called UEFA Cup back then. It was before it was rebranded. But that team had, you know, Fernandinho in midfield, Willian out wide, Jadson, very elegant playmaker at number 10, Luis Adriano up front. I mean, that was a terrific team.
It's amazing as well, Lars, isn't it? Because what that did was it set the template for what Shakhtar then did once he'd left, because once they had that pipeline, once you've proven the pathway to players, they then want to join you, don't they? And Shakhtar, even under the most extraordinary circumstances, as we'll talk about later in the show, still doing well in European competition. And that foundation very much comes from Lucescu's coaching.
Yeah, it does. It does. And he was a strange, like, he was a mix of things, because early on in his career, like, he got his first sort of club jobs in Western Europe, you would say, in Italy, where the Italians had been impressed by how solid, like, he coached the Romanian national team in the 80s, and the Italians had been impressed by how solid they were. So, and he was a very methodical and, serious coach. But at Shakhtar, like, he really embraced the attacking side of the game, and they were a fun, attacking, likable team, and really sort of used the qualities that these Brazilian players brought. And it is a tragedy, obviously, what's happened to that club. The fact that they had this incredible training ground, they built this incredible stadium that's now suffered bomb damage. Of course, they've not been able to play there for many years, and this, I guess, is a little bit of something that will make him a controversial figure with some people, because after Russia sort of effectively occupied parts of eastern Ukraine, after that conflict started sparking up, Shakhtar became this homeless club who kind of had to play in Lviv for a while, played in Kiev for a while. Lucescu left and took the job at Zenit St. Petersburg, which was not a popular move among his many fans in Ukraine. I mean, and I know this is a eulogy, but we have to point out this was not super popular. He eventually went back to Ukraine to manage in Dynamo Kyiv, and there they were. The ultras were protesting because the fact that he'd gone and coached in Russia, but he, of course, went forth and won the treble with them. And I flagged that up because I think he's the only coach who's ever done that. He's won the domestic league title with 2 different teams in 3 different countries, in Romania, in Turkey, and in Ukraine. And I think that is an absolutely incredible achievement when you think about it.
Yeah, 38 trophies he won in all. And I think it's right that you bring that up about the move to Zenit, about some of the controversial elements, because he was somebody that was quite happy to speak openly about things. He spoke about Valery Lobanovsky, who is Dynamo Kyiv royalty. I mean, he is the best of the best, seen as one of the great coaches of his generation. There are coaches across Europe who have been influenced by him. And he made the point that he hadn't really won anything outside of Ukraine. And that didn't go down particularly well either. And I think there was a feeling that he was somebody that, if he thought, it could get a reaction out of players or a reaction out of fans, or could generate some energy, he was quite happy to go down that route. Yeah, no, for sure. I remember, so his Shakhtar team played away at Chelsea when they had a very good team going, and the poor old Trokowski in goal had a terrible time. The Chelsea fans will remember this. I mean, Shakhtar played really well, but their goalkeeper made a couple of big mistakes. And I remember sitting in the press conference expecting him to kind of stick up for him or something, but he just absolutely slaughtered them, like, in the presser afterwards. There was no, he talked about, it's not possible to get a result when my goalkeeper is behaving like this. I'm paraphrasing, but yeah. He didn't pull his punches. I think it's an interesting element of, there are different types of greatness, right? Lobanovsky was someone who was an innovator, someone who's made a real impact on how the game is played, and in terms of pressing and his understanding of the game. I do want to flag up again, like, winning in different countries and in different cultures is really challenging. And I do think the 2 years in Istanbul where you win the title with Galatasaray, go across the town and do it for Besiktas, that's an incredible achievement, because this is not an easy environment to coach in. A lot of good coaches, especially coaches who are not Turkish, have gone to those clubs and found it very, very difficult to work in that environment, because it is different to really anything else in the world. So be able to do that, to show that you can build something of a dynasty at Shakhtar, and then to go to a domestic rival in Dynamo Kyiv where you're not necessarily even that welcome, and pick up a treble there as well. It's an incredible body of work. Yeah, true football visionary. He was at the forefront, actually, of video analysis as well. One of his other coaches worked with him, and they used to splice together tapes, and he was very much ahead of the curve when it came to that. His son, Razvan, has been a coach for 22 years. He's the current PAOK coach, and the outpouring of grief and respect across Romania has really been quite something to behold. Thousands going to pay their respects. A true great of our sport. Great to talk about and reflect on the life of Mircea Lucescu. Now, throughout the show, we are going to be getting updates from Augusta. talkSPORT's Sean O'Brien has all the latest from the US Masters.
Yes, England's Justin Rose leads the Masters in the final round. Where have we heard that before? The three-time runner-up who lost to Rory McIlroy in a playoff last year has hit the front, going 3 under through his first 8 holes and threatening to finally write his own fairy tale here at Augusta. Rory McIlroy started the day in a share of the lead with Cam Young. They've both faltered, but they're still only 1 shot back. And so is world number 12, Russell Henley. He's emerged from absolutely nowhere. And world number 1, Scotty Scheffler, is still lurking within 2 shots. So we're nudging closer to the most famous back 9 in all of golf. It never disappoints the Masters on Sunday. And it's a 45-year-old Justin Rose who leads with McIlroy just 1 shot back.
The Masters on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Buy a used car and get a free 2-year service plan.
Will this be Justin Rose's year at last? Well, coming up after the break, we're going to head to Germany on Trans-Europe Express.
Ethan and Werry and Miles Lewis Skelly this summer, and we're talking about maybe 100 million for the pair. That's too much, surely.
Well, no, I mean they're great prospects, aren't they?
100 mil for
Skelly's probably just he's not had a great time lately. He's just fell away from that first team a little bit. He's got a lot of people in front of him at the moment. And Capio's come in. He's done a really good job on that left hand side. You got Calafiori as well. So I feel for him a little bit because you're a young player. You went through that little bit of stage where your form ain't great. A lot has happened in his career very quickly, Al. I mean, scoring a goal for England, playing for your country at a young age. So it might have just caught up with him a little bit, but he's just got to keep working hard and see where it takes him. Waineri's on loan at the moment, but he's a top player as well. A really, really
and you're really
great
happy
talent.
with young Max, aren't you?
Oh, Max he's doing different class. 16. People forget he's only 16. Amazing. He changed the game. He changed the game when he came on against Everton. He looked like...
And was getting back and helping out.
Yeah, and he scored that first goal. As I said before, his family must be so proud to watch him, has gone through the ranks and all that. And he's a really good, grounded young kid. So he's going to be a real prospect. Look, things can go wrong still, as in football. You know what it's like, Al. You had a poor injury, didn't you, yourself?
Yeah.
And injuries can affect you.
A gradual injury.
But I think the technology now is a lot better from when you was around, I should imagine. But he's got everything going for him. He's just got to keep working hard, and he's going to make a difference as well. And
Well, it's competition time now, and it's a big one. We've got 2 tickets for the Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Championships on Monday, July the 6th, up for grabs. You'll be watching the world's best from official Wimbledon Devonshire seats on centre court. You'll also have exclusive Devonshire lounge access throughout the day. The perfect place to soak up the atmosphere between matches. For your chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close on the 16th of April 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338 now. I can tell you that Inter are now 4-2 up at Como. We've had a couple of goals from Marcus Thuram to take it from 2-0 down to 2-2, and now a brace from Denzel Dumfries, who, of course, has missed so much of the season with injury. He's got it to 4-2. Lars, where are we at with Lyon Lorient?
Just a brace from the right wing back there. I mean, that's just totally normal behavior. Well, I think Inter are a good team to watch if you are if you get a bit frustrated, if you support a team that play three at the back. You're like, listen, playing with wing backs can be very attacking. Look at Inter. You've got a brace from your right wing back. You've got DiMarco on the other flank, who's got 14 assists this season. You just got to get him forward.
It's supposed to be fun when you play three at the back. It's not all about defence. We're going to look at the Bundesliga. Our headline, Union break new ground. And what this is about is that Union Berlin have sacked their coach Stefan Baumgart after they lost at the weekend to the bottom side Heidenheim, and they've named Marie-Louise Eiter as their caretaker boss until the end of the season, and she is the first female head coach in the history of the Bundesliga and indeed Europe's top 5 league. She'll be in charge for the rest of this campaign, so only a handful of games, 5 games, and in theory she'll take over the women's team in the summer. But what's interesting, Lars, is that she's stepped up in an interim role before, but last time she did it, it was a co-interim role with another coach. This time, it's all about her.
Yeah, the last time she was in this position was when they got rid of Urs Fischer and made another internal promotion with Nenad Bjelica taking over then. So she was involved. I think the key thing here is, like you say, it is an internal promotion. It's a situation where if we take her identity and gender completely out of it, what they've done is they've gotten rid of the head coach and put the under 19s coach in charge for the rest of the season, which in itself is not a completely unusual thing to do. And I think culturally, the Bundesliga is probably a place where this is it's unusual, but I don't think it's a complete shock. Am I right in saying that? Kevin?
I think that's fair to say, because if you look at, we could just look at what Marie-Louise Eiter has done already. She was a player. She played for Turbine Potsdam and other clubs as well. She was at Werder Bremen. She's somebody who's built up a lot of respect within Union Berlin. She's been the under-19 coach. They've slated her to be the women's coach as of next season. And she has stepped up to this role before. And so she's seen as somebody who absolutely can steady the ship because they're not completely out of relegation danger. It was really interesting, actually. So Lucas Toussaint, who is a French midfielder who used to play for Union and played for them when she was last in caretaker charge alongside Marco Grote, he said, look, it doesn't matter whether she's a man or a woman. If she's got the skills, she's got the skills, and I believe she does. And the other thing that was interesting is that because she's been a player, in his eyes, Toussaint's eyes, she knows the codes of the dressing room. She understands how players operate. And you're right to point out that German football has already kind of had this kind of situation, because Sabrina Wittmann, who people might not be aware of, she's been in charge of Ingolstadt in the 3rd tier for quite some time. So I think German football is quite open to female coaches in the men's game being promoted in this way.
I think these days a lot of elite footballers are above all their competitors. Above all, they are extremely competitive people who want to win matches. And coaches, whatever their name and reputation are, if their players feel that they're not helping them win matches, they get found out and they get chucked out very quickly. Whereas in this case, it is an internal promotion. So the bosses who have made this decision will know what she's about. The players will know what she's about because she's been part of the team before. So they will have made this choice knowing, well, certainly feeling very confident that she will have the respect that she needs to have in the dressing room for this to work.
One team's worse off than Union Berlin right now is Wolfsburg. Second bottom still, 2-1 home defeat to Eintracht Frankfurt this weekend. It's worth remembering that Wolfsburg have one of the biggest budgets in German football. They're backed by Volkswagen. They pay good wages. They pay hefty transfer fees. But, Lars, this is a total mess.
It is. And we will have, because I'm here, we will have some, there will be plenty of sort of Scandinavian propaganda thrown your way.
Quite right.
I'm going to take, I will take every occasion to flag up how well things are going for the Scandinavians at the moment. Lamentably, when it comes to Wolfsburg, I think the Scandinavians can't really hide away from this. I think a lot of the blame will be directed at the door of the former sporting director Peter Christiansen, who have assembled a squad that I would describe as Dane heavy.
Oh, yes.
It's a little bit. It was starting to become a little bit like the Portuguese players at Wolves in the Premier League. Like, it's everywhere you look, there's another Dane. Maybe there's simply too many Danes in this team, Kevin.
I mean, it is amazing, sure. Lars, really, because you've got Christian Eriksen, who, of course, everybody knows very, very well, still a technically gifted player. I'm not quite sure he can have the same impact at this level, and he hasn't really so far. Jonas Vin, who's a striker who's been linked with Premier League clubs time and time again, but it's not really happening for him. Joachim Mæhle, who I think is an excellent attacking fullback, but, you know, not really happening for him either. Lovro Majer, who's seen as the next big thing in Croatian football. But I spoke to somebody recently who was having a chat with one of Wolfsburg's players, and the impression he was given was that this is a very comfortable life at Wolfsburg with not a lot of pressure, not a huge push to go beyond mid-table, but that's seen them slide into a really difficult place.
You probably have to be very particular with what kind of guys you bring through the doors when that is the situation. It's such an odd one out, because when we talk about German football, we often talk about, you know, how passionate the fans are, how big the stadiums are, you know, what a good balance they have, the good supporter culture. But like you say, Wolfsburg is a completely different place. It's not that there aren't any Wolfsburg fans, but there are just not that many of them. And like you say, there's just
and
really
why would
no
there be?
pressure on
Because
them.
it's a fairly small place, Wolfsburg. It's built around the Volkswagen factory. It's not a big hub of German culture or football.
So there, I think, if you are then the sporting director and you're trying to put a squad together, you have to really make sure you have competitive guys who are, you know, sort of self-motivated and self-driven, who will set certain standards in the training ground, who will push people. And I think you have to be extra mindful of the fact that you're not getting pushed by your surroundings in any way. Unfortunately, I don't think they've done that. Amusingly, this summer, they signed Mr. Christiansen, the former sporting director, did sign a player who was not a Dane, which was refreshing. He signed the Slovakian centre half Denis Vavro, who of course has played in Denmark 2 times for FC Copenhagen. Is it a problem that you have a sporting director who only has the numbers of Danish agents? Maybe this is part of the challenge for Wolfsburg here now.
Well, he's not flying the flag for Denmark particularly well, I have to say, and he's had to go, and it may well be that his legacy at Wolfsburg is a very costly relegation. One works.
Do you think they will go, Kevin? Do you think they can still? I mean,
until recently, I didn't. I think they've got a chance of sneaking into the playoff ahead of St. Pauli. But I really wonder. I look at some of the games they've still got. You know, they've got Union away. So Marie-Louise Eta will be in charge for that one. So there'll be a lot of attention on that game. Gladbach at home, that's tough. Freiburg away, that's a nightmare. Bayern at home, they never do anything against Bayern. And then the big one is St. Pauli away, and that could be a playoff for the playoff, effectively, on that final day of the season. I just want to get to Dortmund, Lars, because they were beaten at home by Bayer Leverkusen, 1-0 with a surprising stunner from Robert Andrich. Great win for Leverkusen, much, much needed, because I don't think they've played well for a while now. They've been having some difficult results, but they're right back in the race for the top 4. But the big story I felt was that Nico Schlotterbeck, the centre-back for Dortmund, he signed a new contract until 2031, but he was booed by some of the fans because it's believed there is a release clause in that contract that is active from this summer.
All right. Well, and certainly someone who seems to be It's a funny one. Can we describe that contract as a marriage of convenience? This is, I mean, he seems less than 100% committed to staying there.
He's saying all the right things. I want to lead us. I want to win trophies. I want to do this and I want to do that. And it's believed that Bayern is not one of the clubs on the list that could activate that contract. But the fans aren't very happy with him at the moment. So a section of the fan base isn't very happy. So I just wonder whether there's going to have to be a bit of positive PR between now and the end of the season just to smooth that over, because on the face of it, it looks like a good deal, but actually I'm not convinced that it's placated all of the fans. Lars, let's get to your star of the week in Germany.
So my star of the week, I mean, we haven't mentioned Bayern at all, so I'm just going to throw in Leon Goretzka there for scoring the goal that took Bayern across the line. They've now scored 102 goals this season, which is a new record for them. Says something about just how good they've been. And Goretzka looks like we'll be leaving Bayern in the summer, so maybe a little bit of a calling card for him, reminding people at 31 years of age, he's still a potent presence midfielder. Maybe someone wants this sort of box-to-box guy, physically pretty strong, can hit a ball. Any Premier League clubs out there?
Oh,
maybe?
I think there should be a few. I think he's a terrific player, and they've smashed a record, actually, a single season scoring record that stood since 1972. My star of the week, Jan Diomande, scored a late winner for RB Leipzig, 1-0 win over Gladbach. Big for them for the Champions League. I'm telling you right now, that kid's going to be a superstar. He's 19, Jan Diomande. He's one of the most exciting players in Europe. Plenty still to come on Trans Europe Express.
Pep Guardiola has been speaking today about his team's tendency to finish season strongly.
Hopefully we can do a lot of points. It's at the situation that we are in the Premier League, so we need to do all of them. Otherwise we will not give us a chance to try it until the end. So we need to do a lot of points. We were not consistent enough during the season. We dropped points that we should take it, and that's why we're in the position that now we cannot do it differently.
He also talked a little bit about on whether he feels more excited at this time of the year. No, he says, I have a lot of yellow cards. That means how excited I am. Not just for April, but during the season, I have had a good energy, and I still have good energy. You get the feeling that he thinks that there's still a chance that they can catch them.
I think they're probably going to have to win every game to do it. We were just working it out there on Gabby's crib sheet. They've got 8 games left. They're on 61 points. So if they win every game, they get to 85. That would mean that Arsenal on 70 need 5 wins from their last 7 games. If they win every game, Manchester City, they've got a squeak, especially as they play Arsenal. But they have no margin for error. And I actually agree with Gabby. We all think Chelsea will lose on Sunday, but it might be a more difficult task than we think. Remember, they went with the under-21 manager to the Etihad Chelsea and got a point.
You're listening to Trans-Europe Express. Kevin Hatchard sitting in for Danny Kelly, and alongside me for this one is Lars Sivertsen. Let's give you a latest score from Serie A. It is now Como 3, Inter 4, into a 4-2 up, but Da Cunha has just scored a penalty. They've got about a minute of normal time to go in that one. If Inter win, they go 9 points clear at the top. But we're going to focus on France in the next few minutes. The headline for this section, Monaco mauled, Lars. Monaco's Champions League push hit a brick wall. They were hammered 4-1 at Paris FC, and that was a really important result for Paris FC, just to settle any kind of lingering relegation nerves.
But this was a shock, because Monaco had been going really well. They were on a run of they came into this off the back of 5 straight wins, which were some pretty decent. Like they beat Paris Saint-Germain away from home. They'd beaten Lyon. They'd beaten Marseille. Like things were ticking along very, very, very nicely for them. And this came out of nowhere a little bit. They had more shots. They had more possession, but they weren't sharp enough in front of goals. And Paris FC, a really interesting team for them. I mean, I think Monaco still they can still get there, and they'll shrug this off. I'm sure. But I cannot stress enough just how surprising this result was.
Yeah, and you look at the impact that Antoine Kombouaré has had, because they didn't really want to make a coaching change and started to get a bit twitchy. Kombouaré's come in. It was interesting, Maxime Lopez, who was dropped by Kombouaré as soon as he arrived, he said, look, I paid the price. He hit hard when he came in. It shocked the whole group and showed that there would be no presents, no gifts. We had to really fight. And sometimes you need that. But the interesting thing now, Lars, is what happens next. Because if we think of Kombouaré, he was at PSG and he got the elbow from the Qatari owners in favour of Ancelotti, in favour of progressing the club. If Kombouaré steadies the ship here, is the same thing going to happen to him at 2 different Parisian clubs?
Do you think there's a risk of that? Because it's worth going over what Paris FC exactly are. They are sort of a very interesting and exciting, I would say, upstart club who, you know, while they are not spending crazy amounts of money, they're spending a fair bit of money, because their majority owner is Bernard Arnault, who is a sort of a luxury goods magnate. He controls a lot of fashionable brands, the type of things, Kevin Hatchard, that I am not very familiar with.
I was going to say the kind of thing we buy all the time, don't we?
No, not a very maybe
draped in these things constantly.
I've seen some of your T-shirts, Kevin Hatchard. I'm sure you're more familiar with some of this stuff than I am. Humble Norwegian, I will wear a nice sweater for the benefit of the people who are watching on YouTube. But yeah, my point is, Paris FC have got real money behind them. They've got this link up with the Red Bull group. They have a 10% stake in the club as well. So there's going to be some knowledge sharing from the fizzy drink empire there as well. And they're positioning themselves as like the other Paris club, because PSG are this very, very strange entity in the world of football. They are this sort of, even though they don't have a Galactico policy anymore as such, they operate on a completely different plane to any other French club. So clearly there is space for another smartly run Parisian club. And they haven't gone out and spent Mr. Arnault's billions wantonly, but they have brought in some guys, including Ciro Immobile, who scored here, who's back in Western Europe after spending some time in Turkey. It didn't end tremendously well for him at Besiktas in the end, but he's there. They've got Ikone at the wing, who's also a player who's familiar to some. Maxime Lopez in midfield, played for Sassuolo before, very solid. So these are not household names, but they are players who would not necessarily normally be on a fairly recently promoted team. Put it that way, Kevin.
Well, talking of ambitious clubs, we moved to Lorient because they're playing Lyon at the moment, Lars. How's that one going for them?
It's not going well at all. And I was going to say at the top there, Kevin, is when we were discussing who was going to keep an eye on what, and you got Inter Como and I got Lyon Lorient.
I've done you in there, haven't I?
You did. You absolutely done me there. No, it's a 2-0. It's an important 2-0 win to Lyon, but it doesn't have the drama of of Inter Como, it doesn't. It looks like Lyon are gonna secure an unproblematic 2-0 win, which I have to say, in the context of Lyon's season, they'll take an unproblematic 2-0 win. At the moment, they've actually not won a game before this since the 15th of February. Been on an atrocious run, Lyon. So this is big for them.
So it was going incredibly well for Lyon. Then it very much wasn't, and they're hoping to turn it around between now and the end of the season. But Lorient, really interesting, I think, because their coach Olivier Ponteloni has done a brilliant job, but he has announced that he is not going to stay beyond the end of this season. He felt that he wasn't valued in contract talks. And what I find really interesting about him is that he won promotion, got them back into Liga, and there was all this talk that he was a promotion specialist and could he actually do it in the top flight? And Lorient kind of kept him hanging for a while and didn't give him that contract offer for a while. I think that annoyed him. And now the talks have broken down completely and he's going to move on. But Bill Foley, who's part of the group that has ownership of Bournemouth and the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the ice hockey team in the NHL, he's got this stake in, or his group has got stake in Lorient, and they are very, very ambitious, Lars.
They are. I have to say, I'm personally not a big fan of the multi-club thing, even though it seems everyone are doing it so far. Whenever I've heard Bill Foley speak in the context of Bournemouth, I've actually been quite impressed because he's spoken a lot about, like, he said up front that he's coming into this sport as something of an outsider. He's spoken about respecting the footballing traditions of this sport and not wanting to necessarily change everything. Contrast that to whenever you hear Todd Bowley open his mouth, out of these two, there's one American investor I trust to have his heart in the right place. But he's given this interview with L'Equipe this week where he said some things, I guess, in the context of Lorient that, I mean, he suggested that he sees Lorient as having just as much potential, maybe not from a revenue view, but that it can exist as an equal partner to Bournemouth, which I think, if you're a Lorient fan, I'm not sure you're convinced about that. If they're equal partners, why are you sending Eli Krupi to play in the Premier League? Why is he not staying with us? I'm not sure I really
suggest
buy that.
The hierarchy, doesn't it?
And the reality,
that's the problem with multi-club, right? That there's always going to be an end point and a club that's part of that track. So if you're at Strasbourg, you're going to go to Chelsea if you're any good. If you're at Lorient, you're going to go to Bournemouth.
Yeah, and I've thought a lot about this. So how would I feel? So my hometown club in Norway are in the second tier. They're a small, provincial club that's typically in the second tier. If we were bought by like the people who owned FC Copenhagen or something, and the deal was like we could have some promising youngsters and maybe some older dudes or some castaways from FC Copenhagen, but anytime we have a good player, off he goes to Denmark. Would I like that? I mean, maybe it would make us a little bit better. I don't think that's what football's about. I don't think you should buy your season ticket knowing that your club is completely subservient to a different club. As a fan, I think that's a very difficult thing to accept.
100% agree. It's why multi-club ownership for me doesn't work, because you as a fan should always be able to have full belief that the guys who run your football club have that football club's best interests at heart and nobody else's. And I think maybe it works in other sports in the sense that, okay, you can have an NFL team, you can have an NHL team, and you can bring some of that infrastructure and knowledge to the football side, right? But that's completely different to owning a lot of different clubs in different countries, and you're not necessarily the main deal. So I'm not sure I'm happy about that. If I was a fan involved in multi-club, Inter have won. They have won 4-3 at Como. That is massive because they were 2-0 down at one stage. And what that means is they're 9 points clear at the top. That is absolutely huge for Inter. Lars, who's your star of the week from Liga?
You know what? I mean, it was only a penalty, but Olivier Giroud scored a goal again for Lille. He's having a pretty productive season at the age of 39. He's the rarest case of a guy who like gets into his late 30s and goes to MLS, but then comes back and becomes like a useful. 7 goals this season for Lille for Olivier Giroud. He's still around.
And Lille are absolutely flying. My star of the week, the Rennes striker Moussa Al-Tamari, scored an excellent winner against Angers to boost their hopes of qualifying for Europe. Right, let's head back over to Augusta as talkSPORT's Sean O'Brien has all the latest in the US Masters.
Justin Rose leads Rory McIlroy by one shot heading into the back nine of the Masters on Sunday. It's like watching a replay. McIlroy's playing really well, but the putter's just letting him down. Missed a short birdie putt on 9 just now and makes the turn at level par for his round. So he stood still and Rose has gone and grabbed it. 3 consecutive birdies to close out his front 9. And he's making things happen out there. This is a man who, at 45, he doesn't know how many more chances he'll get to finally win a green jacket. And over the years, nobody in this field has really deserved one more than he has. Till Hatton's within 2, but he's running out of holes. Cam Young has slipped back into that tie for 3rd. He's also 2 shots back. And Scotty Scheffler and Russell Henley are within 3. But Justin Rose is the story. He leads the Masters. McIlroy's 1 shot back. And the next 2 hours could be pretty unmissable.
The Masters on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get an extra £500 when you part exchange your car.
Lots of twists and turns still to come. You're listening to Trans Europe Express.
I mean, who's left there now? Only Alisson, Van Dijk. I think that's probably it, isn't it?
Just on Andy Robertson, do you think he'll stay in the Premier League?
I think he can.
Yeah,
I think he can. I think they're.
I'd have him at Tottenham. I wish we got him.
Well, you were linked with him in January, weren't you?
Yeah.
You know, and that the right was. It's not the biggest surprise in the world, is it? That he's leaving.
No, it's not a surprise.
What
but
happened in January?
It made us, think about left backs, right?
Yeah.
You think about the great left backs of the Premier League, and where does he rank?
So when I was outside with Ryan, the producer, and then Ryan said there was a period where he was the best left back in the world, and I went, "What? What you on about? Best left back in the world?" And he said he's best in the top 3 of the Premier League. And I'm like, I'm not sure he is. And then you look at the names that you think, you know what? Actually, maybe he is in this conversation.
I think he is. Look, Ashley Cole, for me, obviously, yes, he's the greatest.
He's out on his own.
He's out on his own. And then after that, you look at the other left backs. They're at Patrice Evra.
In terms of numbers, let me just tell you now, Andy Robertson's Premier League appearances, 373. 13 goals, 69 assists. Now that is insane for a fullback.
Competition time now, and it's a big one. We've got 2 tickets for the Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Championships on Monday, July the 6th, up for grabs. You'll be watching the world's best from official Wimbledon Devonshire seats on centre court. You'll also have exclusive Devonshire lounge access throughout the day. It's the perfect place to soak up the atmosphere between matches. For your chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close on the 16th of April at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338 now. So we're going to take it to Italy, and a big win for Inter. They have gone 9 points clear at the top of Serie A. They were 2-0 down at Como. Really tough game. It was always going to be a tough game. Nico Paz had doubled Como's advantage just before half-time, but seconds after that, Marcus Thuram scored to give us a half-time score of 2-1. Thuram then scored early in the second half to make it 2-2. Then there was a double from Denzel Dumfries to give Inter a 4-2 lead, and even though there was a late penalty from Como, Inter saw it through. And Lars, when you bear in mind that Napoli have dropped points, Milan have lost, this feels like a pivotal weekend for Inter.
It really does. Like, I mean, we probably can't say that that's it, but it's very close to it, I think. I mean, maybe not home and hosed, but certainly home. And I think the hose is out.
Yes,
they've not been hosed, but someone has brought out the hose is plugged in. You know, we're pretty ready to go here. And it's not. I think it's tough for Napoli because they have some injuries and they've had injury problems all season, and really, for me, the surprising thing is how much, to what extent Conte has actually stuck with it for Napoli this year, because Conte has a history of when things start going wrong, of just completely imploding and things going wrong in a very bad way. And there was a moment in the autumn where it felt like that was the kind of cycle where we were in. He was starting to complain a little bit publicly about things, but he stuck at it and they're right there. In terms of Inter's challengers, I'm kind of looking more at Milan, who've fallen away terribly. Milan have lost 3 of their last 4, losing very, very badly to Udinese this weekend. So really, in just a couple of weeks, Milan's title challenge has fallen away as well, which makes me, again, looking at the hose there. The hose is ready.
Do we feel like Milan have just regressed to the mean, that they should actually never have been in that position in the first place, but Allegri's got in there? They haven't had European entanglements, so they've had 3 weeks to prepare, but actually they're kind of back at the level that maybe we thought they'd be, pushing for Champions League, but not much more than that.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if you'd have told me in August that Milan were going to have a serious title push this season. It felt like a little bit, I mean, both bringing back Allegri and, frankly, as much as I and all football lovers adore him, bringing Luka Modric in, these all seem like stopgap solutions, to be honest, to try to keep Milan up there, try to get them into the Champions League again, so that they can build on something, rather than this being a team that's kind of that's peaking. It's just absolutely. Do you know Luka Modric is the outfielder who's played the most for
it's just phenomenal.
Madrid. It's absolutely extraordinary. Like, I mean, and absolutely no slight on him at all. He's put in an incredible season for them, much more so than I think anyone thought they could do. But what we've seen, I mean, both against Udinese now when they lost 3-0, and in their last defeat against Lazio, Milan had the most shots, they had the most chances, but they are lacking a little bit up front, and it's been working most of the season. They've been playing with Pulisic and Leao really up there. Neither of them are typical number 9s. You can't really say that it doesn't work as, say, when they're second and they're third in the league, okay, but this might become a recurring theme. I mean, we're getting to Spain later in the show, but I like a number 9, Kevin. I like having a striker in my team.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, because I think Rafael Leao has definitely fallen off a bit. I think that's fair to say, and I think now
he does that.
Yeah, because if he was more consistent, I'm not sure he'd still be at Milan. And Milan is a massive European club, there's no doubt. But you look at the current dynamics of European football, if he was elite, which I don't think he is, I think he'd be at a club with more resources. I think, you know, he'd be at Real Madrid, or he'd be at a top Premier League club, but he isn't. And I think this is because he goes in these streaks. And I know there are a lot of Rafael Leao loyalists who would be scandalised by me suggesting that, but I just don't think he's shown the consistency you need to really make that leap to the elite level. I just want to ask you about Roma, Lars, because this is a great story. I love this, because we've got 2 great icons of Italian football, Gianpiero Gasperini, the coach of Roma, and Claudio Ranieri, who was the coach of Roma, who stayed on as a senior advisor to the owners, and they are not getting on.
Well, no, they're not. I mean, Gianpiero Gasperini is an interesting one. He's obviously hugely respected and admired for the work he did at Atalanta. And during his time at Atalanta, where he basically took them from being a provincial mid-table club to being Champions League regulars, I think you have to say. a lot of people ask the question, like, why hasn't this guy played at or coached at one of the top clubs? He had a brief spell at Inter that didn't work out, but why has he not been given a chance at one of the top clubs? I think we're seeing part of the reason for that this season at Roma, because he's making a lot of, he's been sniping in the press a lot about suggesting, I mean, he specifically said that only one of the players they brought in the summer was a player he specifically wanted. And he's been making all these little comments about suggesting he's not happy with the transfers and stuff. And you can't really do that at these big clubs. Like, you create trouble for yourself, and because it requires a little bit of diplomacy. Results wise, I think you would say fine, not great so far. I mean, they started the season really, really well, but they've fallen off now. They're still in the hunt for a Champions League place, and that would mean a lot to them. But part of the job, I think, of managing these big institutions is managing upwards, about dealing with the people above you, and managing, being a diplomat, essentially. And Gasperini hasn't been doing that very well.
Yeah, Gasperini complained about the transfers. Ranieri, who was part of that transfer policy, came back and said that he was consulted about all of these transfers, and the club had decided to start with young players and slowly bring them to the big stage, just as Gasperini had done at Atalanta. He also put in a completely needless dig and said, I chose 5 or 6 coaches, 3 of which didn't come, suggesting that Gasperini was certainly not first choice. Lars, who's your star of the week from Italy?
My star of the week for Italy...
Daniel
we
Marlon,
were just talking about. Yeah, I got it. Listen, I'm pausing for effect, Kevin Hatchard. Give me some credit here.
Showbiz. I didn't believe in your showbiz abilities.
Bit of drama. Come on. No, we were just talking about Roma. Daniel Marlon with the hat-trick against Pisa on Friday. Maybe a surprise to some Aston Villa fans to see Daniel Marlon pop up with the hat-trick, but there he is. Absolutely shoddy defending by Pisa in that game. But yeah, hat-trick by Daniel Marlon. He has to be my star of the week.
See, Lars Sivertsen has a sense of theatre and drama, and I clearly do not. My star of the week, Sebastiano Esposito scored the winner for Cagliari in a big 1-0 success over fellow relegation battlers Cremonese. He's on loan from Inter. He has scored in 3 of his last 4 games. So just to remind you, big win for Inter tonight. They've won 4-3 at Como. They are 9 points clear at the top of Serie A. We've got so much more to come in the next 2 hours of the show. You are listening to Trans Europe Express.
Morgan Rogers does seem to be doing it week in, week out, largely. 24 goals and 23 assists to his name since the start of last season. And he is expected to be at the centre of a £80 million transfer tug-of-war this summer. Why has this chatter started now? And
just 80?
I think they want a bit more than that. I was doing some inquiries this morning to see if he's got a release clause in his contract. Doesn't sound like he does. And I think Aston Villa are within their rights to ask for Jack Grealish type money for Morgan Rogers. And I think somebody will pay it. I think he is capable of going on to one of the top clubs in the country. But as Gabs has said, ideally Villa will want to keep him, but we know they're under financial pressure. More to do, I think, with the UEFA financial regulations than the Premier League ones, but it may be that they have to cash in, particularly if they don't make the
It would upset the manager.
June the 30th as well.
It would upset the manager because he's like his son. He's his favourite player. He plays every game. He's the last one to come off. He loves Morgan Rogers. You know, he brought him for £12 million from Middlesbrough, took a gamble on him, and I agree, £100 million.
It's now frustrating, isn't it? Because if you sell Morgan Rogers, you're sort of almost admitting that you're never really going to bridge that gap.
Financial fair play rules. I'll tell you something now, 100%. These owners want to win it all.
Yeah.
They've said that. The manager says he wants to dream. That's what I'm saying. He'll be so frustrated if he has to sell Rodgers because of financial fair play. If these rules were fair and you didn't have to sell a player to sort out the debt that you might...
More green jackets have been lost at the 12th than at the Augusta City Dry Cleaners. Rory McIlroy knows this better than most. But what is Amen Corner and why is it so iconic? The famous sequence has always been there since the Masters began in 1934. It didn't get its name until '58 though, when American sports writer Herbert Warren Wind, on the left, wrote, "At the farthest reach of the Augusta National Course, down in the Amen Corner." He drew inspiration from the 1933 jazz song Shouting in That Amen Corner by the Dorsey Brothers. The reason behind its difficulty is all in the sand and the water. Tournament officials don't even bother to count the balls lost in there each year, such is the sheer number. The 11th, named White Dogwood, is a downhill 520-yard par 4 with a pond to the left of the green and a bunker to the right. Both cause a lot of trouble each year. The 12th, Golden Bell, is perhaps the most famous hole in the world, with danger everywhere. Many aim for the flag, but look, get it even slightly wrong, and you're in the azaleas at the back, or the bunkers at the front, or even worse, Rays Creek. Or you can play it safe and aim for the open green on the left. You chicken. Tiger Woods once said, if you make 4 bogeys from Thursday to Sunday, you're doing well. And the highest ever score on that hole? 13. It's a par 3. Tom Weiskopf in 1980 was the sorry soul. Often the iconic Ben Hogan Bridge is the only thing players enjoy about Golden Bell. Even if you escape there unscathed though, you met with Azalea, the dogleg par 5 13th. It tempts players to go for the green in 2, but cut over those trees on the left at your peril. Every year, it seems, Amen Corner destroys someone's dreams. Rory McIlroy dropped 3 shots through here as his round unravelled in 2011. In 2016, a year after navigating Amen Corner expertly, Jordan Spieth shot a quadruple bogey on the 12th to throw away his green jacket. I mean, it sounds like my game, to be honest. So who'll be the next to be brought to their knees, praying for mercy after Amen Corner?
You are listening to Trans-Europe Express. Kevin Hatchard sitting in for Danny Kelly tonight alongside me, the Norwegian sensation, Lars Sivertsen. So good to have him back on the show tonight. We've got plenty to come in the next hour. We're going to be checking in on the life of Kylian Mbappe. We're going to look at La Liga and how Barcelona are very much taking control of the title race. And we're also going to look ahead to some really exciting second legs in the quarterfinals across the Champions League. And indeed, later in the show, we'll look at the Europa League and Conference League. It's all coming up on Trans-Europe Express. To Madrid then. It's been a pretty bad weekend for Kylian Mbappe and company. It's time for this.
Mbappé, Mbappé, Mbappé! Sa carrière, le Paris Saint-Germain, Mbappé! Mbappé! Little give and go, Mbappe's in! Oh, it's 2-2! He scored twice in 2 minutes! Tête de Kylian Mbappé. Allez, Kylian!
So Kylian Mbappe, part of the Real Madrid team that lost at home to Bayern in midweek. We're going to talk about that quarter-final a little bit later in the hour, but he did score Madrid's goal in that first leg. That was his 14th goal of this Champions League season. So only the 9th time a player's achieved that. Cristiano Ronaldo did it 3 times, set the all-time single-season record of 17 goals in the Champions League season. Amongst the others who've done it, the likes of Robert Lewandowski, Lionel Messi, Karim Benzema. You look at Mbappe's numbers, Lars, 69 goals in 97 Champions League games, 83 goals in 97 games for Real Madrid. Even though it's not going well for Real Madrid as a team, I think his form since joining the club at the start of last season has been phenomenal.
It's head spinning, isn't it? I mean, it's remarkable, and I think we end up talking a lot when it's so tricky at these top clubs. It's like you either win the league and or the Champions League, or people
it's
only
over.
talk about
You're finished.
Yeah. The whole talking points are like, what's wrong with this team? And like, well, inevitably we will get to those questions because they did drop points again this weekend. But you're right; it's worth spending some time on the fact that Mbappe coming in, I think we all understand that the team is not 100% ideally set up for him in terms of the guys he has around him. You look back at the time when he was at PSG, where he let it be known. I don't think he ever said it on the record, but he let it be known through people that he would quite like to play with a striker, like when he played with Giroud at the national team, to have a focal point so that he doesn't have to be the number 9. He doesn't have that kind of player at Real Madrid. I think he's kind of tried to adjust his game a little bit to not just be the guy who cuts in from the left and goes for the shot, try to be more of a central striker. But even with these little tactical things being there, like you say, he keeps scoring the goals. Last season in the league, 31 goals and 34. This season, 23 and 25 starts, 14 and 9 starts in the Champions League. He is incredible. But the question remains, you know, lost to Mallorca last time out, draw to Girona now, and the season is not looking good.
Yeah, and Mbappe at the centre of controversy in that 1-1 draw with Girona this weekend. Fede Valverde had scored a trademark long-range goal early in the second half to put Madrid 1-0 up, although Tottenham legend Paulo Gazzaniga didn't have a great moment, really. The ball went straight through. I was going to say trademark. Is it a trademark that the goalkeeper just kind of lets the ball through? Because that would be a very good trademark to have. I think it's trademark that goalkeepers are scared of the moments when Valverde lets fly from distance. I remember Thibaut Courtois.
Would you and I be, for sure?
Yes, I would leave immediately as soon as he started winding up the shot. I remember Thibaut Courtois said once that when he's in training against Valverde, if he doesn't concentrate, he can get really hurt, because he said this guy will break your hand. If you're not prepared for one of his shots, he could absolutely break your hand. So they got the lead. 11 minutes later, though, coughed up that lead. Thomas Lemar, former Atletico Madrid player, smashed in a shot from the edge of the D. That was a much better strike than Valverde's. But with 5 minutes to go, Mbappe went on this mazy run into the penalty area, and the on-loan Manchester City defender, Vitor Hayes, clearly caught him in the head with his arm. And we know there was contact because there was blood streaming from Mbappe's forehead. So the penalty wasn't given. The VAR didn't get involved, and the game ended 1-1. And Lars, Real Madrid were absolutely furious about this.
Yeah, it feeds into this sort of sense of injustice. I mean, Real Madrid have been engaged in this sort of strange campaign against referees for quite a long time. Now, many listeners may scoff because historically, I mean, Real Madrid are a very powerful club. I mean, what we know of referees and unconscious bias would suggest that actually the bigger clubs are generally favored by the referees. But Real Madrid have for a very long time been suggesting that the referees in Spain are biased against them. Arbeloa actually said earlier in the week about this, he said, "You all know my opinion about what has happened for so many years and continues to happen. I am not going to change my mind." So Arbeloa, who as a player was on very, very good terms with one Jose Mourinho, is kind of continuing the sort of legacy of seeing dark and shadowy conspiracies.
He's been well trained. But
very
that, it
much out of
ties in
the-
with Arbeloa's general vibe, right? He is a loyalist. He is a Real Madrid
Yes.
loyalist. If there's a conspiracy, he'll lean into it. If anybody attacks the club, he'll attack twice as hard. This is what appeals to Florentino Perez, but I don't
Yes.
think it's going to be enough to save him if they go out of the Champions League and they're well behind in the league.
Probably not. And in this instance, I mean, before we move on, we have to say what he said about the penalty was amusing, because he said it was is this a saying in Spanish? Dear listener, if we do have Spanish speaking listeners, text in, because it's not a language I've mastered. But he said it's a penalty here and it's a penalty on the moon, he said.
I think
Maybe
he's a
been
fan of the
watching
Artemis launch. I think he's been
He's the
following
Artemis.
that
He's
really
been-
closely, I reckon.
But it also raises the question, would it have been a penalty on the moon, Kevin Hatchard? I mean, what happens if you slap someone in zero gravity? Do they just keep going? I
Yeah,
don't know.
would Mbappe have just spun off into the ether?
Yes.
Never to be
Possibly.
retrieved.
Yes, a huge concern. But yeah, certainly. And in fairness, I have as in general, I think big clubs, big coaches, big players whinge about referees too much in general. I think it's a very convenient excuse. And I don't think the referee is the main reason they drop points here. But I will concede that definitely was a penalty, both here and on the moon. Like, it's a little
and on
odd.
Mars and on Neptune.
Yes. Yes.
I think there's a wider point here, Lars, isn't there? Because, yes, they've probably suffered an injustice in this game. But that's points dropped against Girona. We've had points dropped against Osasuna, Getafe, Mallorca. This is a regular theme. They're showing up against the teams you'd expect them. They're showing up against the big hitters that you wouldn't guarantee a win. So they beat Atletico Madrid in the derby recently, really good performance. They've beaten Barcelona in El Clasico. But against the teams that they're expected to beat, they're not picking up 3 points.
Yeah, and there's a common denominator there. In those, when they've dropped points, it's not as if they've been outplayed or anything. I mean, obviously not, they're Real Madrid, but also those games have been games against teams who sit back, who compress the space, and who don't give them a lot of room to run into. And Arbeloa addressed this actually after the draw against Girona, where he said, and I've got the quote here, he was asked again if the combination of Vinicius and Mbappe, how well can they really work together, which has been a concern for a long time. And he says, look, I can't worry about the two players with the stats they have. I mean, they're two of, 4 or 5 of the best players in the world, which is fair. I can't be worried at all. But he also says, and I think this is good, he says, I think we have to improve a lot of things collectively, especially something we've been struggling with, teams that sit back, that leave us little space, that don't come looking for us often. It's something we're still struggling with. I think that has more to do with collective performance than individual talent. So I guess the suggestion is, against those teams, they need to be a little bit sharper in their passing movements. They need to be able to open them up. But I'm going to go back to the thing I mentioned earlier in the show, Kevin. Do you know what I like? I like a center forward. And this is going to sound a little crazy. They have Mbappe and Vinicius up front. It's great. But, sometimes I miss Joselu.
Yes.
Like, just have a center forward who's over 6 foot, who can win a couple of headers, who can keep a defender busy, and just make a little bit of space for these nippy, fast guys.
Well, there's a parallel, isn't there? Because we're going to talk about their second leg coming up against Bayern. They lost at home to Bayern this season in the Champions League. When Thomas Tuchel was at Bayern, they turned that tie around because of Joselu. And, they have had times when they've needed that centre forward, that physical presence, that player for the likes of Vinicius and Mbappe to play off. I do think they've got issues in midfield, Lars, as well, because I certainly feel that if you had somebody like a Pavlovic in there, for example, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if you had somebody steady to keep the ball moving, to have a passing range, to start picking teams apart, and that could also mind the shop at the other end, that would really help. Tchouaméni I like a lot, but that's not him. And I don't think they've got that controller in midfield anymore.
No, I completely concur. And I think that speaks to a broader subject of Real Madrid and an issue they have, which is they brought in Xavi Alonso. Arbeloa is now talking about how they need to improve the collective. It's like, yes, this is why you bring in a guy like Xavi Alonso, who's a Leverkusen team where, a coordinated, aggressive front foot, high pressing team. But playing like that means everyone needs to do their part. And it means everyone might have to do a little bit more running off the ball than they might otherwise want to do, Kylian. And
Vinicius.
and when he, and yes, exactly. And when he was there, essentially, like reading between the lines of what's being being reported, the players forced him out of there. They didn't want that. So they've got the mean man on the sideline who kept telling them what to do. They've sent him away. Real Madrid for many years were this kind of team that didn't have a great collective system, but they kept finding ways of winning. And I just wonder how much of that was just the fact that they have Luka Modric and Toni Kroos in midfield. Like, do you even need a coach when you've got two like the great strategists of their generation controlling the game in midfield?
And this
But
is
the
why
characters they have
Ancelotti
now are so
empowered them to
different.
make decisions, right? He
Exactly,
would go
exactly.
to them and say, "What do you think?"
And clearly, let's be very clear here, Camavinga, Bellingham, Valverde, they are incredible footballers who are good at so many things. But that ability to run a game, to understand when to set the tempo and how to do that, I'm not sure that is a skill set that they've fully developed yet. And I think that being the case, maybe they do need a little bit more of a coach that actually sets clear instructions and works on specific moves and things, even though they don't like that very much.
More Real Madrid chat to come when we look ahead to their quarter-final against Bayern in the Champions League. But let's head back over to Augusta as talkSPORT's Sean O'Brien has all the latest in the Masters.
Yes, Rory McIlroy leads the Masters after Justin Rose makes a mess of Amen Corner. Rose goes bogey on 11 and 12, missed a tricky par putt on the difficult 11th, and then duffed a chip on 12. Actually had a lot of work to do for his bogey there. And McIlroy has steadied the ship. Looked like things were unravelling in the middle of his front nine, but it's been really solid since then. Just made a fantastic par on 11, and he's just about to pull the trigger on the famous par 3 12th. Sends it on its way. The way you do this, you just aim over the bunker, left of the green. You don't go anywhere near that pin, but Rory takes it on and he stuffs it to within about 6 feet. That was a risk, but it's a risk that's paid off. That's someone who's already got a green jacket. And he's got a birdie chance and a chance to go 2 clear on the 12th hole. Just to run you through the rest of the leaderboard, Cam Young's still in this as well. He's 1 shot back alongside Rose, Russell Henley, and Till Hatton, who has actually posted 10 under in the clubhouse. I'd be surprised if that wins, but stranger things have happened. Colin Morikawa could post a score as well. He's 9 under with 2 to play, and Scotty Scheffler's still only 2 shots back. So I think any of those guys I've mentioned could feasibly win. But for now, McIlroy leads by 1 shot at 11 under par, and you can follow our live blog over on talksport.com.
The Masters on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Buy a used car and get a free 2-year service plan.
Coming up after the break on Trans-Europe Express, we'll talk La Liga.
How does he go about saving Spurs? Because we were talking about this on the Premier League All Access podcast. He's a pure football man. He wants to play a certain way, but the time it takes to get that injected into the players' veins is not long enough for the time that he's had in terms of being on the training ground. So does he have to be a little bit more simple in his approach? Does he have to work with the resources he's got?
Yeah.
And what are those?
What has he had? He's probably had nearly 10 days maybe before the game kicks off. You can't have that hard approach, I don't think, at this stage. That's got to be something in the summer, and you work out who's with you, who's not. At the moment, he's got to work out what formation he's going to play, who's going to be his best players. And you look at the midfielders available, bring them down, Sam, like Bergvall, Gallagher, Paulinho, Sarr, Gray. Out of those centre midfielders, who do you choose out of them?
Well, it's great to have Bergvall back for a start, and it's great to have a choice, because one of the problems they've had over the season is they haven't been able to have a choice because there's been so many injuries.
But even going forward, Tell, Simmons.
Kudos has picked up a setback, hasn't he?
Exactly. Moani, Solanke, Richarlison. He's got to work out which of these players is going to get the goals that they need. Van der Ven, second top goal scorer. Richarlison's got 9. Then Van der Ven and Romero have got 4. And then I think Towell's got 3. It's not good enough. It's really not good.
Well, it's competition time now, and it's a big one. We've got 2 tickets for the Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Championships on Monday, July the 6th, up for grabs. You'll be watching the world's best from official Wimbledon Devonshire seats on centre court. You'll also have exclusive Devonshire lounge access throughout the day. It's the perfect place to soak up the atmosphere between matches. For your chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can call 0343 418 7260. The lines close on the 16th of April at 4 p.m, and that's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338 now. So it is time to talk La Liga. The headline, Derby demolition, or was it? Because Barcelona have got 9 points clear at the top of La Liga. They beat Espanyol by 4-1. But actually, Lars, it wasn't as straightforward as the scoreline suggests.
Yeah, Hansi Flick trying to manage his minutes a little bit in the squad with this one, resting Robert Lewandowski, Ferran Torres starting up front. Ferran Torres, who hadn't scored since January. I think it's 13, 14 games without scoring for him now.
I'll tell you why that happened. Because I posted on social media that I thought he was a really underrated player and that more people should be talking about him. And somehow I ruined his season because from that moment on, he didn't score.
But this is modern media here, Kevin Hatchard, because you need to, we know, everybody knows about the curse of the commentator when you're commentating it live, but it's not enough to just be a good commentator. You also have to be a social media personality, Kevin, and you're bringing the curse of the commentator to social media. Very good.
I can ruin players in various different ways, it seems. Absolutely.
Arbeloa might be people who love the dark arts, Kevin Hatchard, give him a call, you know. Have you got a difficult game coming up? You want to jinx someone? Ferran Torres with a handy brace to put Barcelona in command of this. But Espanyol made it 2-1. And let me tell you, midway through the second half, this didn't feel like a done deal for Barcelona. Espanyol did their best. They're clearly not of the same caliber of team, but they made it awkward for Barcelona. In the end, Lamine Yamal and Marcus Rashford scored towards the end of the game to make it 4-1. But they had to sweat for it. And Pedri, for instance, I am pretty sure Hansi Flick would have preferred to take Pedri off at an earlier stage of this game to give him a rest. He ended up having to play the 90 minutes. So a little bit of a tougher opponent than they might have hoped for going into that return leg against the Atletico Madrid next week.
Marcus Rashford scored in the game, as you mentioned. He's now got 25 goal involvements in all competitions for Barcelona this season. Now, they know what it'll take to turn his move into a permanent switch. Hansi Flick has spoken very glowingly about him at various points in the season. What's your feeling on him? Because it seems to me that he's somebody that would largely be a backup for Rafinha, but this season that has been necessary because Rafinha's missed big chunks of the season.
I think he's done exactly what they were hoping he would do. He started 15 games in La Liga. He's come off the bench in 11, and he's contributed 6 goals and 6 assists, which isn't, barnstorming numbers, but it is very, very useful. Like you can't, especially when you're playing this sort of very high pressing system that Flick likes, you can't have the same 11 every week. You just can't. You need rotation players, and for Rashford, who needed somewhere to reboot his career, I'm sure it's been an incredible sort of adventure for him as well to live in Barcelona. It seems to have worked. He looks happy. He looks fit. Nice goal in this game. I guess the question is, as often the case with Rashford, there are questions about the finances of the deal of potentially bringing him there permanently, both in terms of the transfer fee United might be looking for, but also in terms of his salary. I mean, he is on a very significant contract at Man United, probably a higher salary than Barcelona would necessarily want to pay for a rotation player. So there's some stuff to iron out there. But you have to say, this sort of impact, he's made the kind of impact I think they were hoping for.
We're going to talk a bit more about Barcelona later on when we talk about the Champions League quarter-final between them and Atletico Madrid. But on the Atleti side of things, Lars, they made 10 changes, clearly just gearing up for that second leg against Barcelona, having taken a 2-0 lead in the tie. They went to Sevilla, and Sevilla rubbed their hands together with glee and managed to pick up a win.
Yeah, Sevilla, of course, who've been, who've been, I used the phrase circling the drain earlier. I mean, they're a club who are not the team they were back in the day when, of course, Unai Emery took them on these European raids and they became famous for unearthing talented players. I mean, they've been struggling in the bottom half and not looked like themselves for a while. At real risk of getting relegated this season, but this was a crucial 2-1 win for them. The Atleti B essentially had 68% possession in this game, so I guess it tells you slightly desperate times for Sevilla. That even though they're facing Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid's B team, effectively they just kind of sit back and just soak it up. But they managed to do it. A set piece header from Nemanja Gudeli with the winning goals for them. A really big moment for them, and that relegation battle in La Liga, Kevin, looking very spicy.
Yeah, it's phenomenal at the moment because Sevilla with a big win, and the big losers of the weekend really were Valencia because they lost 1-0 at Elche, who are still down there. Elche is still in the bottom three, but they're only 3 points behind Valencia now. Mallorca beat Rayo Vallecano 3-0. Oviedo, who looked absolutely dead and buried a couple of weeks ago, but they've put together back-to-back wins. They beat Sevilla last weekend. They won 3-0 at Celta Vigo, who have been pushing for the Champions League. So Valencia, Lars, with Carlos Corberán, the former West Brom boss, at the helm, they're in deep, deep trouble. And it ties in with this idea of clubs like Sevilla, like Valencia, really struggling, mismanaged in recent seasons. And there's a parallel with Germany, I guess. You look at big hitters like Hamburg, Schalke, they went down when people thought they were too big to fail, and that wasn't the case.
I do wonder if this is just the sort of changing landscape of football finance at the highest level, because if we go back a couple of decades, these bigger clubs who had pretty big stadiums, a big loyal fan base, that would just kind of guarantee you a level of income that would kind of insulate you a little bit against mismanagement. Like you can usually buy your way out of these crises. But football finances have changed. I mean, increasingly, you get most of your money through television deals, through buying low and selling high, by smart player trading. And I think we're seeing this across the board. It was very pronounced in Germany a couple of years ago, like you said, when we had Hertha, when we had Hamburg, and we had Schalke all getting relegated, that we're seeing these sort of smartly run clubs who work the market well, who keep the wage bill low, who, even though in some cases they might have some smaller stadiums and not a big brand name, we're seeing many examples across Europe of those punching up a little bit and doing better than some traditional big names. And yeah, both Valencia and Sevilla in real trouble this season.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the key. I think what we're seeing is that tranche of clubs that don't have a big reputation, maybe, but they're either super well coached, or they've got really good youth policy, or they're able to develop players, or, as you say, they're able to do really smart player trading, maybe bring a guy from the second division, develop him a bit, and then sell him on, or they're able to do all of them. And I think we're seeing that. We're seeing it in the Premier League. We've seen it with Brighton, with Bournemouth. We're seeing clubs who are also taking on really good coaches. That really helps as well. Some of these clubs, whether it's Spain, whether it's Germany, whether it's the Premier League, are run by really, really smart coaches. You look at Bournemouth. I mean, Andoni Iraola's just led Bournemouth to a 2-1 win at Arsenal, and it was absolutely deserved. It was a phenomenal performance, and that's the kind of guy these clubs are bringing in. Lars, who's your star of the week from La Liga?
I'm going to Vedad Murici, the Mallorca, the Kosovoan Mallorca forward who scored 2 goals against Rayo Vallecano. Important win for Mallorca because it has become my theme of the evening. I love a big striker. I can't deny this. We're heading towards the World Cup. You know, we've got 2 of them, Erling Haaland and Salah. One is 6 foot something striker. Murici, one of those big sort of towering target men. Not the fastest, but 2 goals for him for Mallorca today.
Yeah, Murici's now broken Samuel Eto'o's record. He's now scored the most goals in La Liga for Mallorca. He's having a phenomenal season right now.
He's come a long way. Sorry, just a couple of years ago, he was at Lazio, couldn't get a game. He was just sat there like a large object on the bench, going nowhere. But here he is now, 21 goals for Mallorca this season. Tremendous.
How quickly things can change in football. My star of the week, Alaves' Lucas Boye, who scored a stunning equaliser in the 8th minute of stoppage time to secure a 3-3 draw for Alaves at Real Sociedad. Really big result potentially for Alaves. If you love comedy defending, check out the highlights of that game. Plenty still to come on Trans Europe Express.
Managers can be petulant, players can be petulant, just like owners can be.
De Zerbi was. I mean, you know, you can say De Zerbi, and he's walked into the Tottenham job. You know, like.
Would you take him? Would you take him at Chelsea?
Right here, right now.
Why are you hesitating?
Well, because that's just it's a rhetorical question.
I know, but
would you take him at Spurs?
Yeah, I would have, but we got De Zerbi.
I know, but you're facing relegation.
You got Rossini as the manager.
That's not the question.
Okay, what's the question? Is would you take him at Chelsea?
No.
Why?
Well, that don't give you a reason, right? No.
What do you mean? I want a reason.
Because he's petulant.
No, that's not a reason.
Well, it is.
You've had loads of petulant managers.
I know, but
you've had hundreds of them.
They get sacked.
Okay, but that's absolute garbage. Don't tell me you wouldn't take Glasner over Rossini.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, mate.
No.
What are you on about?
You're throwing your pen down.
What are you on about?
You're like a petulant
No,
child.
I know, but you're just an idiot. Like, I know you've got like a little Chelsea gig. I know you've got your little Chelsea gig going on over there.
I don't get me own way.
No.
So I'm throwing my pen down. How childish are you?
No. That is absolute guff.
Throw that.
That is absolute guff. Right. You're talking absolute garbage. Don't talk garbage. Glasner is a million times. After a bumper weekend of sport, there's only one place to be tomorrow morning, and that's the talkSPORT Breakfast Show. The legend Jeff Stelling will make his return to the show, and we'll dissect all of the weekend's football, the Grand National, and of course the Masters. That's the talkSPORT Breakfast Show tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. Make sure you don't miss it. Let's take a look at Tuesday's quarterfinals in the Champions League. We'll cover the games on kickoff with Adrian Durham, Charlie Adam and Mickey Gray. That'll be on talkSPORT from 7 o'clock on Tuesday. All of the goals as they go in from the Champions League, the EFL, and the Women's World Cup qualifiers. So we'll have Liverpool, PSG, Atletico Madrid, Barcelona, and Portsmouth, Ipswich, among others. Let's start with PSG against Liverpool, Lars, because PSG won the first leg 2-0 at the Parc des Princes. Liverpool tried an unusual back three, back five, as it turned out. The truth is it didn't work. And if PSG had been more clinical, this tie would be over already.
I have to agree with that. I think this was a good game by Mamardashvili in the Liverpool goal, which I was glad to see. He's had a tough season in terms of deputizing for Alisson, but I really believe he is a good goalkeeper. I've seen him play some very good games, both for Georgia and for Valencia. But we saw some of what he can do shot stopping wise there. But you're right, it was a tough afternoon, a tough evening for Liverpool. Can I stick up for Arne Slot here a little bit and just say,
please do.
Somebody has to. I thought there was some logic in going to a back three there, because you're looking at this game. You're playing PSG. You've got probably. Do you have the best wingers in world football? I mean, maybe with Yamal and Rafinha, Barcelona are up there, but certainly in terms of like zippy, speedy, dribbly guys.
Yeah, and I think you've got an unusual threat with the fullbacks, right? Because it's one thing having Kvaratskhelia and Dembele, but of course Dembele moves into the middle a lot. But when you've got to constantly deal with the speed of Nuno Mendes and Achraf Hakimi, that does give you a huge problem.
So scary wingers and rapid, fast fullbacks coming at you. I think fullback has been a real problem for Liverpool this season. Kerkez has had a, shall we say, uneven first campaign at Anfield. I think that's a polite way of putting it. Whereas Frimpong is not a fullback, as you, Kevin Hatchard, would have told everyone when he signed.
I did.
Like he is a
wing back, folks. He is not a fullback.
And he has more wing than back. He's a particularly attack-minded wing back. Like he's not a fullback. So playing a back four against the team that I think has more of a threat from wide than really anyone else in world football, with Kerkez, who's had a difficult time at times, and Frimpong, who's not even a right back. I don't love that. I think that is a little scary. So switching to a back three, get an extra centre half in there, which can kind of maybe in theory should have helped cover up some of Van Dijk's lack of pace as well. Like all of this stuff, there is logic to it. But watching that game, I was just kind of shocked by how meek Liverpool were. I mean, this is the Trans-Europe Express. It's not the Let's Complain About Liverpool show. I'm sure there have been many shows like that on this network over the last few weeks anyway. But there's just a lack of energy to them. You can sit back, okay, but you then have to press when they come into your area. Sitting back doesn't mean you stand around in your own third. Like
aggression as well. Where was the aggression? You
still have to be aggressive.
Yeah.
Like sitting back doesn't mean maybe it's just the sitting part of that sentence that get us into problem. It just means that you're attacking them, you're pressing them lower in your own half, and that's the thing that wasn't happening. And I do wonder if that's a physical thing. Turning it back on PSG. I thought they were brilliant in this game. I thought they were so good, and they're so fun to watch. One thing is that they dominate possession, but they're still quite ambitious with their passing. I mean, if you look at other like extremely successful possession teams, like Guardiola's Barcelona, Guardiola's City when they were at their peak and taking 100 points, some of those teams were occasionally a little boring to watch, I thought, because they recycled possession too much. There were too many little sideways passes. PSG are so aggressive in terms of the passing they do. They go vertically as often as they can. And I think they're now starting to combine. I mean, it's actually quite a young team still, but they're starting to get quite battle-hardened, these players. And there was one moment I noticed. We just touched on the importance of having a midfielder who's a strategist and can run a game. Towards the end of this game, there was a moment where Hakimi was played through on goal, and instead of finishing, he squared it to Nuno Mendes, who was somehow also through. This is your fullbacks through on goal for some reason.
That's the Luis Enrique way.
Yeah, and they ended up not scoring somehow. But then PSG regained possession with Vitinha in an advanced position, and he could have tried to find a teammate. He could have tried to continue the attack. But Vitinha stopped. And I think that's the thing. Like, he realized, you know what? Both of our fullbacks are in the 8-yard box for some reason. Like, this is the time for us to just kind of, we're 2-0 up. That's good. But 2-1 is not good. If we get a counter-attack against us, this is really bad. So even though I have the ball deep into the Liverpool half and we have some players, I'm just going to put my foot on it. And I'm going to give my teammates a couple of seconds to figure out where people should be and what's going on, because my fullbacks are over there. And I just thought that was just a moment of sort of game management.
Yeah, that's it.
Which is so important to have at that level, because if you concede a goal there, suddenly that result isn't as good. And we've seen before, I mean, Liverpool last year got out of jail against PSG massively. It can happen. So they're combining an extreme amount of pace and skill and ability with some real intelligence in that team now as well. So that they are terrifying, PSG.
Well, Luis Enrique, the PSG coach, was asked after that win why his side plays such attacking technical football when a lot of teams elsewhere are playing an increasingly defensive game.
I cannot analyze the other teams. Every time has to choose as a manager the way he tries to play. I think Liverpool is one of the teams who plays better. They use the set pieces also in the same way, but this is not our style. We try to play the best football. We try to have fun with our supporters, trying to show them the way we play. It's offensive way, trying to create superiority in every part of the pitch, and that's our idea. That's our mentality. We never choose players by if they are tall or short. We try to play in our style. And yeah, I can not judge the other teams. That's the difference. But I think Liverpool is a little bit different. Other teams in the Premier League who try to play all the time long and all the time with set pieces. But anyway, we are happy the way we play, and we're happy because our supporters are happy.
So Liverpool looking to save their European dream on Tuesday against PSG. They'll hope to use that Anfield factor. They are 2-0 down going into that second leg. Another team that's 2-0 down going into the second leg of their quarter-final is Barcelona. They were beaten at home by Atletico Madrid, which was a major surprise, really, because they'd won 3 of the 4 games they played against Atleti this season. It wasn't quite a smash and grab, Lars, but having played really well for 35 minutes, Barcelona then got themselves into a tangle and got Pau Cubarsí sent off. Julian Alvarez then scores from the resultant free kick. And even 10 against 11 in the second half, I thought Barcelona played well, but then got hit with a sucker punch.
Yeah, I thought they were really impressive the way they stayed in the game. I was doing this thing where you watch 2 games at the same time, and I was kind of double screening this with the Paris Liverpool game. But it just felt to me every time I looked over at the Barcelona Atletico Madrid game, Lamine Yamal was trying to dribble like 5 people on his own.
Yeah,
and quite a lot of the time he succeeded. I mean, he is a phenomenal player, isn't he? What that was interesting about this one is, listen. If you ask Hansi Flick, and this has become such a topic of conversation in Spain as well, with this high line that Barcelona play, Barcelona have always favored, or certainly in their modern history, have always favored playing on the front foot and trying to keep possession and trying to press the opponent and play a high line. But Flick has taken it to an extreme. I believe it's even been referred to as the Flick line, as it was some sort of the Barcelona Maginot line there.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Because because people who watch Barcelona a lot always tend to come back and go, well, it works. They're going to win La Liga again. And yes, this is fine. It will work against most teams. But what it does is it lets you play. It gives up chances against every single team they play. And I just think in a competition like the Champions League, where you have to be damn near perfect all the way through, you might get away with a couple of things here and there. It just isn't going to wash against the series of teams.
And so this is the interesting thing, right? It has worked most of the time. If Hansi Flick was here, he would say, we won La Liga last year. We're probably going to win it this year. The tactic is fine. And it would be hard to argue against that. But, according to the reports, earlier back in February, after they lost 4-0 to Atletico Madrid, it was in the Super Cup, wasn't it? It was in the
Copa del Rey. Yeah, they lost the first leg.
They lost 4-0 in the Copa del Rey. The players apparently, the Barcelona players apparently held frank discussions with Hansi Flick internally, was the reporting at the time. They had a meeting and talked to him about it and tried to say, listen, there are times where maybe we might want to adjust this a little bit. And I had that story at the back of my mind when watching this game. And wouldn't you know it, in the first half against Atleti, the moment that kind of turns the tie, the red card for Kubarsi is one of those balls in behind. It's a great diagonal run from Simeone Jr. Who gets Kubarsi into a little bit of a muddle. I mean, it's unfortunate. I'm sure he doesn't mean to take him out, but he does, and the rules are the rules.
Yeah.
And that completely turns the tie upside down. And it is impossible to get away from the subject of thinking maybe just over the course of 2 legs, could you have played this a little safer?
Well, Hansi Flick doesn't think so, and I can't imagine he'll play it safe in the second leg either. It's going to be really fascinating to see what Atletico do, because I think people still have this idea that they're kind of these snarling kind of warriors. Actually, they don't really play that way anymore. They're actually quite progressive at times, and I think the way to get them through this tie is going to be to play on the front foot, try and attack Barcelona and try and get that first goal, because I think if they can do that, then they'll be fine. But I think if they go into their shell, if they retreat, I think Barcelona are going to be able to pick them off. So really interesting second legs to come. But let's head back over to Augusta. talkSPORT's Sean O'Brien has all the latest from a fascinating US Masters.
Yes, it's Rory McIlroy's to lose. He takes control at Amen Corner. Sensational birdie on the iconic par 3 12th. He took on the water. He went for a pin that Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods always say you shouldn't even look at on Sunday, but Rory did. And now he's 3 shots clear because he just drains a 6-footer up the hill for birdie on 13. That's an incredible up and down from where he was left of the green. And this looks like a man who knows how to do this. So Rory's 3 shots clear. Difficult scenes for Justin Rose, though. He had an eagle putt on the 13th green and ended up 3 putting for par. That followed 2 bogeys on 11 and 12. Not too long ago, he was leading this thing, but now he finds himself 3 shots back. Also 3 shots back, you've got Cam Young, Russell Henley, and world number 1 Scotty Scheffler, who just made an incredible birdie from the trees on 15. And Tyrrell Hatton's in the clubhouse on 10 under as well, if the field come back to him. But McIlroy's incredibly placed to win a second green jacket. This is never easy, though, especially for him. He leads by 3, and you can follow our live blog over on talksport.com.
The Masters on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get an extra £500 when you part exchange your car.
Coming up, we're going to look at Wednesday's quarterfinals in the Champions League right here on Trans-Europe Express.
Eddie Howe deserves to keep his job definitely in the summer, rebuild his squad of players, probably no European football next season, but you have to be honest and say the Premier League season hasn't been good enough at Newcastle standards.
But is that because of the fact that they haven't got a deep enough squad?
Of course, they haven't got a deep enough squad, but the players that they've had available, they shouldn't be behind Sunderland in the league.
But aren't we back to the same discussion that we had when we were talking about Aston Villa? And that is that they have owners that are wealthy, probably wealthier than everybody else, but yet they're unable to spend because of the financial restrictions. And as a result, that's keeping them further down the pecking order.
Who do you think?
Because you look at their last few seasons, Champions League, qualification, then out.
Yep.
Great season getting to the winning the cup competition, getting to the Champions League, and then out. So what's next season? Another great season, and then the following season not being able to sustain it?
The problem they've got...
It's up and down, up and down, up and down.
The problem they've got as well is, do they have to sacrifice a player as well? Like Aston Villa have? Is that Tonali? Is that Ramirez? Which one is it that they have to sacrifice?
Tonali will go in the summer.
What sort of figures are you thinking for him?
80.
And where will he go?
Manchester.
Which one?
Take your pick.
But the interesting thing
I
there
think he'll end up at City or United.
is that Elliot Anderson is a target, isn't he, for Manchester United? But you're not going to
target for both
of those in, are you?
Well,
one will go one club and the other one will go the other.
Well, I think United.
It's competition time now, and it's a big one. We've got 2 tickets for the Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Championships on Monday, July the 6th up for grabs. You'll be watching the world's best from official Wimbledon Devonshire seats on centre court. You'll also have exclusive Devonshire Lounge access throughout the day. It's the perfect place to soak up the atmosphere between matches. For your chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close on the 16th of April at 4 p.m, and that's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83333 now. So on Wednesday, we've got live commentary on talkSPORT. Arsenal against Sporting in the second leg of that Champions League quarter-final. Adrian Durham will be a presenter for that one. Jim Proudfoot, the commentator, alongside the former England striker Darren Bent. And Lars Sivertsen alongside me. It is really intriguing, that quarter-final, because Arsenal won at the Jose Alvalade. They won 1-0. They rode their luck. David Raya made some really important saves, and Kai Havertz was able to score late on. Normally, given how Arsenal are playing in general, you'd think Sporting could cause a few problems, but you've got concerns about their away form.
I do. Listen, I think saying positive things about Arsenal is maybe not what people are doing right now. It's not been a great weekend for the Arsenal fans. The nerves,
certainly not.
But I do think, as much as it maybe wasn't the rollicking, swashbuckling, wonderful performance, I thought they did just exactly what you want to do in the first leg of a 2-legged tie when you're playing away first. They went there. They were pretty solid. There were some chances that Raya had to deal with, but they held on, and then they snatched a goal at the end. Job's a good one. And I think if it wasn't for the sort of domestic oopsies they've had recently, Arsenal, they'd be going into this with a lot of confidence. I find it a little bit hard to make a strong case for Sporting, because I do think they are significantly better at home than they are away from home. They've dropped many more points on their travels. They've quite a few sort of draws away from home domestically. They've being Norwegian, I of course saw both of their games against Bodø Glimt, where they were played off the park in Norway and then obviously turned it on massively at home.
That's the ultimate example, right? They were atrocious away from home, and then at the Alvalade, absolutely extraordinary in that second leg.
Yeah, they were brilliant. I think there was an element of Bodø Glimt crumbling, sadly, as well in that game, but they looked like two completely different teams, Sporting. So, listen, if this had been the other way around, if this had been at the Emirates first and Arsenal going to the Alvalade with a 1-0 win, I might not have felt as good about it. But I think Arsenal will, unless these sort of mishaps they've been having in the league get under their skin too much. Like I think Arsenal's biggest challenge right now are themselves, really, mentally, to keep any sort of intrusive thoughts out of it, and just bearing in mind they've gotten themselves into this position in the league and the Champions League through being really good, and they have to remember that they are very good.
And they do have some depth in that squad as well. And as you say, they were top of the league phase. They were there for a reason, defended exceptionally well. So certainly got that to fall back on. So they're 1-0 up, Arsenal, ahead of that home leg against Sporting. Bayern Munich are going to try and defend a 2-1 first leg lead. They won at the Bernabeu. Lars, I thought that first leg in Spain was a magnificent Bayern performance. I know that Manuel Neuer had to make a string of saves. I know that Bayern could have been a bit more clinical in the final third. But what I loved about that Bayern performance was it was unapologetically them. Under Vincent Kompany, they press high, they commit numbers to the last line, they take risks, and this is against one of the best counter-attacking teams on the planet, and they didn't care.
Yes.
They were quite happy to go toe-to-toe, and I think they'll do exactly the same in Munich.
I think they will, but that's why I think Real Madrid have a chance.
Yes.
Can I just
Real Madrid always have a chance in the Champions League, doesn't matter how bad they are.
See, this is good. This is where I sense we maybe disagree a tiny bit, Kevin Hatchard, and that makes for good radio.
Yes.
I was watching this game, and I couldn't believe the chances Bayern were giving Real Madrid in terms of hitting them on the counter in the second half. It's the away leg of a two-legged tie. You've gone 2-0 up in the first half. Sit back a little. Don't give them the one thing that, like I said, the one thing that makes them sound like they're a bad team. But the thing that Real Madrid are maybe the best team in the world at is hitting people on the counter. You are 2-0 up. You don't need to give them loads of chances to hit you on the counter. What are you doing?
Yeah, I think where Bayern have learned to change things this season is they learn to recycle the ball a bit better and have better spells in possession. I think they lost that a little bit in the second half. And the other thing, I thought they could have been even more aggressive with the press in the second half. That's a tough thing to do physically, but when that doesn't happen and Real Madrid could start to get out, that's when they started to really cause them problems. The other thing I think that happens is that, and we see this at the Bernabeu time and time again, Real Madrid score one, they've got a great chance of getting two. That happens a lot. And they got the momentum, they got the crowd behind them. But I think that can work the other way, and that can happen with Bayern sometimes as well in Munich. You know, if they start, I think they're going to go flying at Real Madrid in that first 15 minutes. I think they'll try and swarm them. They'll try and be aggressive. They'll try and make chances. And if they get that first goal, that momentum will be with them. I would never, ever count Real Madrid out of a Champions League tie, especially with Mbappe, especially with Vinicius Jr. But I just think defensively, there are so many gaps for Bayern to exploit. And the other thing was, I thought Michael Olise was absolutely extraordinary. Like, we talked about it on the show last week, me and Andy, about whether Olise is Bayern's best player. And I genuinely believe, for all of Harry Kane's goals and his magnificent performances, I think Olise is their best player.
No, he's been incredible, and I think it's good that he's doing it in these big occasions as well, because he's, as you will know, Kevin, he's been doing this stuff in the Bundesliga all season, but that doesn't get as much attention as maybe it should do. I do wonder as well, Michael Olise, do you think people view him differently because they signed him from Crystal Palace? That he's not,
they should,
you know, if he had been like a 60 million pound signing from a bigger club somewhere and came with this sort of star billing, because I completely agree with you. I think he's brilliant, and I think he gets less credit than a few other names in world football who are always getting a lot of attention without throwing anyone in it. I think he should get more credit. I just want to flesh out what I was saying. I think it still is in the return leg. I agree. In front of your own fans, I think what you do is you do try to swamp them early on, and you try to get the first goal to set you up in like a good situation. But just in Madrid, when they were 2-0 up, is there not a case to be made that we should sit back here and we should have a solid structure? Or is it just a case that that's not a way that they play? That's not something they know how to do?
Yeah, I don't think that is the way Bayern will approach it. I think they'll play on the front foot, and I think what that will make for is an absolutely phenomenal second leg. Much more to come in the final hour on Trans-Europe Express.
Robertson at Liverpool, Ella in the show, but here's a reminder what Robertson achieved in his career. He'll leave Anfield after 9 years. 9 years, brilliant. Over 375 appearances and having won every trophy available. What about that for a career, Ray? Did you win every one?
What's that, Al? What listening?
Rob won 375 appearances.
Did he?
For Liverpool. And he's won every trophy available.
I didn't win the Champions League. That's the only one we was missing for us. We won League Cup. I won the League Cup, FA Cup, Premier League, Cup Winners' Cup, I think it was, UEFA Cup. Cup Winners' Cup.
He came with Maguire, didn't he, from Hull?
Who's another great player who's playing tonight, who come from Hull? You get that. He's playing tonight. Yeah, that's a clue for you. Another great signing.
Of course.
Bowen. He come from Hull City.
Of course he did.
All the fantastic players who play for Hull. Who did I play for, Al? Hull City.
I love that. I love the. Do you know the way he strikes the ball? He's hardly any backlift. But he is.
Who would have thought a sporting event's halftime show could have a bigger impact than the game itself? Well, the Super Bowl halftime show does exactly that. In 2024, Usher brought in an audience of 180 million worldwide, the biggest ever in the event's history. But how did singing and dancing get to be the centerpiece of America's biggest sporting event? The first edition of the Super Bowl was held in 1967 when the Green Bay Packers beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Los Angeles. Because of the sheer size of the event, organisers wanted to put on entertainment at halftime for the fans in the stadium. It was a display of marching bands, dancers and pure USA patriotism, and that was the theme that followed for years. In the 1980s, the Walt Disney Company got involved and we started seeing some interesting and questionable displays. But we got our first glimpse of halftime shows to come in '93 when none other than Michael Jackson stunned fans with his 15-minute medley of his own smash hits. When he walked out on stage, he had to wait for the crowd's cheers to die down for about 2 minutes before even starting his first song. Diana Ross, Gloria Estefan, Phil Collins all starred in their own shows, as did Aerosmith, who performed alongside NSYNC. Things got a little bit out of hand in 2004 when Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson produced perhaps the most famous or infamous wardrobe malfunction in history. Shows from the likes of Prince, Lady Gaga and Beyoncé are considered by critics as the best. To give you an idea of the scale of things, Rihanna's 2023 halftime show included roughly 800 people. These ranged from backing dancers to stage crew to camera operatives broadcasting to millions around the world. The whole stage for that show was built in roughly 8 minutes and was broken down and cleared away in the same time. The acts perform for free nowadays, even though the experts reckon it costs around $13 million to put on Rihanna's show. Artists know they'll rocket up the charts in the following weeks. Rihanna's average sales improved by 140% in the months following her performance. The Super Bowl halftime show will be a fixture in pop culture for years to come. So the question is, who next?
You're listening to Danny Kelly's Trans-Europe Express. I'm Kevin Hatchard, sitting in for Danny tonight. I've got Lars Tivertson alongside me for this one. Plenty to come. We're going to be talking to Tim Vickery about all matters South American. We're going to take a look at Norway and Sweden and their chances ahead of the World Cup. Are Norway the dark horses that many people are making out they are? We're going to bring you the conclusion of the US Masters. Plenty of updates still to come, and we'll look ahead to the quarterfinals of the Europa League and the Conference League right here on Trans-Europe Express. that time of the show where every week we catch up with the South American football expert, Tim Vickery, part of the Trans-Europe Express family. Tim, great to be joined by you.
Lovely to be here.
And before we go on to a whole range of topics, I wanted to ask you about Mircea Lucescu, because we started the show talking about his impact in European football and talking about the pure love that he had for football, both as a player and as a coach. That 1970 World Cup where he captained Romania and he swapped shirts with Pele was clearly incredibly important to him. And then that love of Brazilian football carried through to what he did at Shakhtar Donetsk.
Certainly did. He bought Brazilian in a big way, and he made a point of learning the language. Although Romanian is a Latin language, I remember seeing many years ago the film of the '94 World Cup, and one of the Romanians was talking. I thought, hang on a bit, I can understand some of this. So it wasn't the mightiest effort to learn the language, but he did, and he did extremely well by a whole generation after generation after generation of Brazilian talent. So world football has lost a giant and Brazilian football has lost an immense friend.
Copa Libertadores and Copa Sudamericana up and running. What can you tell us?
Yeah, first week, the Libertadores is by far the main event. The Sudamericana is a kind of Europa League equivalent. First week of the Libertadores, and I was watching the European stuff in the week and thinking, what a contrast. Because, some of those European games, real talent going at each other, and the amount on Bayern and Real Madrid, how many goals could that game have had?
Oh, it was phenomenal, wasn't it, from start to finish? Yeah,
it was. Yes, here very, very tight. 16 games, a grand total of 24 goals. I'm looking at. I've got the scores ahead of me, and it looks like a little bit like Morse code. Dash, dash, dot. Some of that is because the favourites in the first week are all away from home. So I think we'll see many more goals in this coming week, the second week, when the favourites are at home, and you'll see them showing the difference between some of the lesser sides. But also on European club football, is some of it is just madly attacking, I think, these days, and glorious to watch. So it was very, very tight over here. Only one team scored 3 goals, and that one team is from Venezuela, Universidad Central. Now, Venezuelan football is probably, I think, over the recent times, the weakest in South America, the club game. It does produce talent, but that talent moves abroad very, very early. But Venezuela has had just an absolutely cracking week. On this club, Universidad Central, they put 3 past Libertad of Paraguay, who are usually difficult opponents to crack. That was 3-1. The other Venezuelan side were against Fluminense of Brazil. They got a 0-0. And then in the Sudamericana, 3 Venezuelan sides, all against Brazilian opponents. Now, admittedly, a lot of the Brazilian sides don't take the Sudamericana particularly seriously unless they're in it at the business end, in which case chance of a trophy will flick the switch. So there was some alternate selections. In one case, the coach didn't even travel, but 3 Venezuelan sides against
coach
Brazilian
didn't even travel. Well, he couldn't be bothered to go.
Couldn't be bothered to go. He watched it in Brazil. That was a game in Ecuador. It is a long way. When South America is huge, to be fair, and the coach is getting on a little bit. But against the Venezuelan sides, 2 Venezuelan sides beat teams from Brazil, and the other one, Caracas, they got a draw away in Brazil against John Textor's Botafogo. So this is something to celebrate. And Venezuelan club football doesn't have a great deal to celebrate. And you look at recent Libertadores, and there have been some tight games, but very, very few goals. But this week is, I think, the greatest week in the history of club football in Venezuela in a very, very long time.
Is there any sort of reason why that would be happening now, Tim? Because obviously the country has been in the headlines for various reasons. It seems strange timing that now everything is coming together for them.
Well, every time I watch them, I think, wow, there's a player there and there's a player there. What's going to happen to him? Next time you see he's gone to Colombia or he's gone to United States or he's gone to somewhere like that. But if you look at the games that they played last, I remember being in the stadium for Carabobo, who beat Brazilian opposition this year. I was in the stadium for their game against Botafogo, and it was 0-0 until the 89th minute. In the end, they lost 2-0. But they were competing. You know, they were there. They weren't far off. There are a few wise old heads, Uruguay and Argentine centre-backs there to bolster things a little bit. And this was one of those weeks where it all came together. I don't expect to see much more of this. And a Venezuelan side hasn't qualified for the knockout rounds of the Libertadores for a long, long time. And I'll be surprised if it happens again this year. Part of it, Big Lars, is just the glorious unpredictability of football. And long may that last.
Tim, I was going to ask about Neymar because I was really intrigued by Carlo Ancelotti's decision not to include him in the squad in March. And obviously he talked about Neymar's fitness. It seemed quite smart to me because I guess Neymar brings a lot of noise with him, whether that's deliberate or not. And there would have been a lot of talk about how many minutes was he going to get? Should he start? Should he be a sub? How was it going to work? And the decision to not take him let Neymar get on with it in peace and let Ancelotti work in peace, didn't it?
Indeed, yes. And by that stage, he hadn't done anything really that would justify his selection. Really, since suffering that serious injury in October of 23. And when he came back at the start of last year, his coach there when he was in Saudi Arabia, Jorge Jesus, you know, the Portuguese with the big hair and even bigger ego, he wouldn't register Neymar for the Saudi League. Wouldn't do it. He said he's just not fit enough. And that was borne out by what happened last year with Santos when he kept on running into muscular injuries. Now, he's trying. I think he's trying very hard. He played yesterday for Santos at home to Atletico Mineiro. They didn't take him to Ecuador in the week for the game in the Libertadores, in the Sudamericana. The weekend before was a potentially massive game against Flamengo, and he got himself suspended for that one for yet again yelling in the face of a referee and picking up a yellow card. None of that has changed. None of that. The whole circus still goes on. So every game now is like a referendum. No, is he back? Is he ready? Is he? And on yesterday's evidence, he is still so far short. And you cannot see any evidence at all of, remember that goal against Croatia in the quarterfinals of the World Cup? That fabulous goal. That player, I think, has gone. It's hard to imagine him operating with that level of pace and balance close to the opposing goal.
It's a bit heartbreaking, that, isn't it, Tim?
Indeed, yes, where the marking is tightest. Where he could still play a role, remember that Brazil have lots of speed merchants, you know, Vini Jr. and Estevão and so on. Where he could still play a role, where he does look potentially useful, is dropping deep and being the man to thread through the passes. Now, that is possible. At the moment, physically, he still looks quite a way off. He has until May the 17th, when Ancelotti names his squad, and every game now is a referendum. There are conflicting reports coming out because, as you said, the noise, the circus, it's all so big. There are reports on the one hand that Ancelotti really doesn't want him, can do without him, doesn't want all the noise, thinks that Neymar just brings too much baggage, and that you can't really carry. If they're gonna play four up front, then those four have to work. You know, it's the only way in conditions of extreme heat when you got two in central midfield and one of them is Casemiro, who's 34. You know, it's something that Ancelotti has stressed a couple of times. I'm not interested in anyone going to the World Cup thinking about Ballon d'Ors. Not interested. It ain't going to work. It will only work if it's all hands on deck. Can Neymar do that? On the other hand, you're hearing rumours about pressure from the sponsors to make sure he's in. And with 26, there is room for someone like that. And remembering, somebody who knows Ancelotti very, very well, Chris Bryant, writes those books with him. Very, very good books. And Chris Bryant, as well as being a football coach, a non-league football coach, is an academic who specialises in the corporate world. And there's a question that he always asks people: what do you do? And you know what Ancelotti's answer was? I make the president happy. It explains a great deal. It explains why he worked successfully with Florentino Perez at Real Madrid, why he worked successfully with Berlusconi at Milan. So, you know, if the pressure really, really is on, then very political figure Ancelotti, what will he do with this? This soap opera my friends, is not going to go away. We're going to be talking about this every week, I fear, until May the 17th, when the squad is named, and possibly beyond.
So, changing the subject completely, Tim, we've had a story out of Argentina that I did not expect to see this year, I have to be honest. We've had the first active professional footballer in Argentina ever to come out as gay. Now, we mentioned earlier in the show that we have now the first female coach at a high level, at the highest level at Union Berlin, and we talked about how in some we weren't super surprised to see that, because in Germany culturally we this is not we have female referees, you know, that seemed like a culture where they were probably ready for that. Pardon my ignorance, but I would think Argentine club football were maybe an area where they're maybe not prepared for this sort of thing. I'm really interested to hear how that has been received.
No pardon needed. It is a huge shock and a surprise in the ultra macho world of Argentine football. But this is quite a sweet story. The player's name, Ignacio Lago. He's a winger for Colón of Santa Fe. Actually won one of the Argentine titles a few years ago and then suffered the aftermath and got relegated. So they're currently outside the 30-team, I'll say that again, the 30-team Argentine First Division. They're currently playing second division. This story actually broke on regional TV. Colón, Santa Fe, it's maybe a 7-8 hour drive north of Buenos Aires. They did a local TV program with him, I think in July of last year, a kind of, Kev the Hatch, you'll remember this, Eamon Andrews, This Is Your Life kind of thing. And his
pegged my age very well.
yeah. Well, if someone is going to have to go down with me on this one. And his partner appeared and made a declaration, and so it was kind of public knowledge in the city of Santa Fe, and they were all just like really cool about it. And no big thing. Life just carried on much as it had before. And it's only in the last few days that this story has broke nationally. And again, Lars, I think you're spot on. Much to my surprise, he's had so much support as a consequence. A little bit like Simon Smith and his amazing dancing bear. It's just amazing how fair people can be.
That's a fabulous way to end our little tour around South America. Tim, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Always great to hear from Tim Vickery. Right, it is hotting up at Augusta. Let's get the latest in the Masters from talkSPORT's Sean O'Brien.
Yes, Rory McIlroy is edging closer to becoming the first back-to-back Masters champion since Tiger Woods in 2002. He leads by 3 shots with just 3 holes left to play. Sorry, 2 shots. Scotty Scheffler has got to 11 under par. So Rory made a comfortable par on 14 and then had to take a huge sigh of relief on 15, almost spun a wedge back into the pond, but it just stays on the green. Remember, he was 4 shots clear last year and inexplicably dumped a wedge in the water on 13. But he gets away with this one and taps in for his par. As mentioned, Scheffler has finally made his move. He gets to within 2 with birdies at 15 and 16, but somehow doesn't convert a very makeable birdie putt at 17. And he's not hit the 18th green. So it looks like he's going to finish at 11 under unless he can chip one in. Justin Rose isn't out of this just yet. He's 2 back at 11 under, but he's got work to do on 17. And Cam Young needs a big finish. He's playing alongside McIlroy in the final group, and he's 3 shots back after missing a birdie putt on 15. So McIlroy is 3 holes away from defending the Masters, but there is still so much jeopardy out there. He leads by 3, and you can follow our live blog on talksport.com.
The Masters on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Buy a used car and get a free 2-year service plan.
It's going to be a nail-biting finish in Augusta. Coming up after the break, we've got Lars with us, so why wouldn't we talk about Norway and Sweden on Trans-Europe Express?
Ethan and Werry, and Miles Lewis Skelly this summer, and we're talking about maybe 100 million for the pair. That's too much, surely.
Well, no, I mean they're great prospects, aren't they?
100 mil for
Skelly's probably just he's not had a great time lately. He's just fell away from that first team a little bit. He's got a lot of people in front of him at the moment. And Capio, who's come in, he's done a really good job on that left hand side. You got Calafiori as well. So I feel for him a little bit because you're a young player. You went through that little bit of stage where your form ain't great. A lot has happened in his career very quickly, Al. I mean, scoring a goal for England, playing for your country at a young age. So it might have just caught up with him a little bit, but he's just got to keep working hard and see where it takes him. Wanyeri's on loan at the moment, but he's a top player as well. A really, really
and you're really
great
happy
talent.
with young Max, aren't you?
Oh, Max is doing different class. 16. People forget he's only 16. Amazing. He changed the game. He changed the game when he come on against Everton. He looked like
and was getting back and helping out.
Yeah, and he scored that first goal. As I said before, his family must be so proud to watch him. Has gone through the ranks and all that, and he's a really good grounded young kid. So he's going to be a real prospect. Look, things can go wrong still, as in football. You know what it's like. Al, you had a poor injury, didn't you yourself?
Yeah.
Injuries can affect you.
A gradual injury.
But I think.
It's competition time, and it's a big one. We've got 2 tickets for the Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Championships on Monday, July the 6th, up for grabs. You'll be watching the world's best from official Wimbledon Devonshire seats on centre court. You'll also have exclusive Devonshire lounge access throughout the day. The perfect place to soak up the atmosphere between matches. For your chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or you can call 0343 418 7260. The lines close on the 16th of April at 4 p.m, and that's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338 now. Now, we've got Lars Sivertsen on the show, so it'd be remiss of me to not ask him about his native Norway ahead of the World Cup. Lars, since Norway qualified for the first time in a long time, all I hear is, wow, what a team they're going to be. They've got Haaland, they've got Ødegaard, they've got Mircea, they've got Bob, they've got all of these attacking players. What about the rest of the team, Lars? Is this going to be a balanced enough team to actually make an impact in the summer?
That is a very pertinent question, Kevin Hatchard, because of course we've had, we've had Martin Ødegaard and Erling Haaland for a little while now, and we had a couple of qualifying campaigns where that wasn't enough. And the thing that's really changed, I think, the fact that we got through qualifying this time, I mean, it helped getting a very iffy Italy in the group. I mean, they were they
you
were
did
not
smash
at their
them,
best.
though, to be fair. I mean, you made that team. I know they've obviously failed to qualify again, but it was phenomenal how Norway made Italy look so ordinary over the 2 games.
Yeah, and it's clear that they have found a balance. It's been a little bit of a challenge because 2 of our best players, of course, we mentioned Erling Haaland and Martin Ødegaard. Alex Sørloth, big Alex Sørloth for Atletico Madrid, is a phenomenal striker as well. He's a very, very good big man. And I think it's been a headache for a while for our coach, Ståle Solbakken, is how you get the 2 big men together, the big man combo. You need to set up a team that makes sense around 2, 6'4" center forwards.
Battering rams. Deploy the battering
but,
rams.
Yeah, but do you put them in a 4-4-2? Like, what happens with Martin Ødegaard then? Are you going to stick him out wide? I mean, if you have him in the middle, that's probably a bit light. Like, these things have been a little bit hard to get around. Now, what they arrived at is a kind of a 4-3-3 situation where big old Alex Sørloth is asked to essentially play out wide, which is a real hospital pass to a guy who's very tall and who's also built. Like Ødegaard, Sørloth is he's 6'5" and he's got muscles. Like, he's not a lithe, right? He's a big guy. he's been asked to stake out wide, track your fullback on the defense, make a few defensive runs. But oh, by the way, Alex, when we have the ball, we would quite like you to make darting runs into the box as well. Now, Alex Sørloth, being a very good centre forward with a very good scoring record in Spain, who's now 30 and doesn't really have the physique for this sort of thing, he would be within his rights to tell the management, hang on, no, I'm not keen on this. But he has been very selfless and
he wants to be in the team, right? Because he's not going to get in ahead of
the thing. He's not going to supplant Erling Haaland, is he? And he's really understood, like, I'm going to have to adjust and do something that's not really my game to make this work for the team. And he's been quite heroic. Fulham fans will be delighted to know that Sander Berge is a very important player in terms of bringing balance to that midfield, because he can do a bit of everything. So he brings a lot of balance to that. But the key thing in terms of Norway doing okay in the tournament, I think, is actually the back four. And everyone's going to talk about Haaland and Ødegaard, and Mircea is someone who was great you're a big fan of his, I'm sure, from watching him play for Leipzig. Really tricksy winger, 2-footed, can go both sides of the fullback. But it will come down to whether the defense holds up or not. And defensively, Chris Ayer of Brentford is a very, very, very important player. We've got Julian Ryerson of Dortmund on the right back, but really this is the sort of vulnerable part of the team. So my big question is, we've maybe not been fully battle tested against very, very strong opponents. And we have a pretty strong group. We've got to play France. We've got to play a very good Senegalese team. It's interesting. I think, if we have the most difficult group in the tournament, but if we can get out of that one, if you have a striker like Erling Haaland up front, like, you have a chance against anyone, people who score goals, very important. But the question is, like, to what extent the defense is going to hold up.
And something interesting in terms of the goalkeeping position, because one of the Bodø Glimt heroes looks as though he might be Norway's number one.
Yeah, so another problem position for us is that we've had our goalkeeper, Ørjan Nyland, who some people might remember being very briefly at Aston Villa and not having a tremendously good time there. He spent some time on many benches. He was on the bench at Norwich. He was on the bench at Bournemouth for a while. He popped up at Reading very briefly. He was on the bench at RB Leipzig for a while. He's not always playing. He's currently not playing at Sevilla. So our first choice goalkeeper is not getting game time. This is a concern. What has just happened is that the Bodø Glimt goalkeeper, Nikita Haikin, who was born in Israel but is of Russian heritage, had a dual Israeli and Russian citizenship, and actually has under 21 games for Russia about 10 years ago. But still, he has been granted Norwegian citizenship. He's been playing for Bodø Glimt for many years now. He has a Norwegian wife. He's been learning Norwegian. He obviously has no caps for Norway, has never been involved with the squad, but he is now a Norwegian citizen. And on paper, given that he's playing and has played very well for Bodø in their European campaigns, he would seem to be a better bet than the national team goalkeeper who's not getting a game for Sevilla. So there's real intrigue about how that will work out. Do we bring someone who's completely new into the group? Do we drop the guy who helped us qualify? A lot of mixed opinions on this. The coach said if the World Cup started tomorrow, Nyland would be starting. But there's an implication there that Haikin will have a chance to prove himself, perhaps being part of the squad, going to the camps, maybe playing in a friendly before the tournament.
That's the kind of thing that when the book gets written about Norway's World Cup campaign, if it didn't go well, it'll all have started with Haikin getting parachuted into the first 11 and players losing their rag about it. Just a quick word about Graham Potter at Sweden. We touched on it last week. I do think he's done a tremendous job, because he took over a group of players that was really low on confidence, high on talent, but low on confidence. And I know you watched those playoff wins very, very closely against Ukraine and Poland, and he was pragmatic and he found a way to win.
Yeah, Graham Potter deserves a lot of praise for the way he maneuvered Sweden through those two games. I mean, he took over with 2 games left of the qualifying group, but with Sweden already out of it. And he spent those 2 first games calling up, quite a few people, trying out quite a few players, having a look at them. And then when it got to the playoffs, he settled on this 3-4-3 system. I mean, structurally similar to what Amorim was doing at United, I guess. The 3 at the back, 4 in midfield, and then a striker and 2 playing off the striker. But what he did, I think he acknowledged that what Sweden have is they don't have a ton of pace at the back, and they maybe don't have very, very top international quality central midfielders, though some of them are young and are promising, but they do have a lot of running up front. I mean, they've got Elanga, who, say what you want about Elanga, but the kid can run. And they have Gyökeres, and they have Gyökeres, who's incredibly hardworking, and when he can burst into space, you know, he's not rapid, but he moves well for a big, strong guy. So he realized, okay, we want to sit back, we want to be compact. Both against Ukraine and against Poland, they kind of let the opponent have a lot of the ball. Both Ukraine and Poland have got slicker midfielders and someone like Zielinski for Poland, and of course, you know, Sudakov is a very nice midfielder for Ukraine. But Sweden were content to just sit back and hit them on the counter. Gyökeres repaid them with a hat-trick against Ukraine and a winning goal against Poland, and Elanga scored a great goal against Poland as well. So 10 out of 10 for just getting the game plan right for Graham Potter. And the thing to remember with Graham Potter, of course, he worked for many years in Sweden. I mean, he speaks Swedish. His Swedish is really good.
Heard it when he was brought into the role, and he spoke very well, I thought.
Yeah, and he's someone who has this great combination of, he brings an outsider's perspective, you know, because I think it can be valuable to bring someone in from the outside who understands football, but who maybe doesn't have all of the entrenched thinking and biases that maybe comes with being part of a community, and he might have fresh ideas, but he also has a very deep and profound understanding of Swedish football, and it just seems like a really great match. And then, having been really, really poor in the qualifiers, the Swedes are now quietly a little bit optimistic, I think. I think they realize Gyökeres is a potential match winner. If they can get Isak and get some game time for Liverpool going into the tournament, maybe they can even get Kulusevski up and running. I mean, that's more of a long shot. Kulusevski himself believes he can do it. he was present pitch side for Sweden, even though, of course, he can't play, but he was there to support the guys during the Poland game, and after the game held a very passionate speech to the media where he declared that, like, I understand that it's difficult because I haven't played, but if anyone in the world can get ready and play for the World Cup, then it's me. I would bet on myself, he said. So he believes, Kulusevski believes he can be ready. We'll see. But if they can have this solid defensive structure with some of the potential match winners they have up front, maybe Sweden can make an impact at this tournament after all.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how both Norway and Sweden get on at that World Cup. Of course, we'll bring you the World Cup across the talkSPORT network this summer. Coming up after the break, we'll look ahead to the quarterfinals in the Europa League and the Conference League, and we'll bring you the latest from Augusta, the US Masters. Rory McIlroy going for back-to-back green jackets. You're listening to Trans Europe Express.
Pep Guardiola has been speaking today about his team's tendency to finish season strongly.
Hopefully we can do a lot of points. It's at the situation that we are in the Premier League, so we need to do all of them. Otherwise we will not give us a chance to try it until the end. So we need to do a lot of points. We were not consistent enough during the season. We dropped points that we should take it, and that's why we're in the position that now we cannot do it differently.
He also talked a little bit about on whether he feels more excited at this time of the year. No, he says, I have a lot of yellow cards. That means how excited I am. Not just for April, but during the season, I have had a good energy, and I still have good energy. You get the feeling that he thinks that there's still a chance that they can catch them.
I think they're probably going to have to win every game to do it. We were just working it out there on Gabby's crib sheet. They've got 8 games left. They're on 61 points. So if they win every game, they get to 85. That would mean that Arsenal on 70 need 5 wins from their last 7 games. If they win every game, Manchester City, they've got a squeak, especially as they play Arsenal. But they have no margin for error. And I actually agree with Gabby.
You're listening to Trans Europe Express. Kevin Hatchard sitting in for Danny Kelly tonight alongside Lars Sivertsen. We've got big quarter-final action coming up in both the Europa League and the Europa Conference League on Thursday. We've got live commentary of Nottingham Forest against Porto on talkSPORT. That's an 8 o'clock kickoff. Jim Proudfoot, your commentator for that one, alongside the former England striker Leanne Sanderson. Aston Villa will look to protect a 3-1 first leg lead as they entertain Bologna. And Crystal Palace are looking really good in the Conference League. They're 3-0 up as they go to Italy to take on Fiorentina. Lars, let's start with Forest against Porto. It was a 1-1 draw at the Dragao. Porto started brilliantly, could have scored in the first minute, deservedly took an early lead, and then one of the worst own goals you'll see in Europe this season gifted Forest an equaliser. And in the end, given how good Porto are at the Dragao, that's a good result for Forest.
It's a huge result for Forest, and they really were on the cush here. Porto had some big chances. But I mean, we'll get to it. But across the board, there was some pretty wacky defensive work that in the Europa League for the opponents of the English sides. I mean, we'll get to Bologna in a second. They have their things to answer for as well. But this own goal, if you haven't seen it yet, you have to look it up, because it's basically the right back trying to hit a pass back to the goalkeeper and just knocking it straight past him. And
I mean, he hits it so hard.
Yeah,
Martin
and on the
Fernandes
frame
just
as well.
hits it so hard.
Yeah, and on the frame as well. Like, there's no need for it. It's completely unforced. He's not under pressure. He has all the time in the world. It's just really odd, and it's not something you expect from Porto. They've been pretty defensively sound all year. This, of course, is the very opposite of that. And it has given Nottingham Forest a real chance here in the home leg. And you wouldn't have expected that, to be honest, going into the tie.
Well, interestingly, Forest are the only team to beat Porto in the Europa League this season. And they beat them at the City grounds. I think that was Sean Dyche's first game in charge, actually. Seems like about 3 years ago. They've had so many coaches and so many different eras, Forest, this season. But they are in good shape. And what's been really interesting, I think, about their season is that even though they've been battling relegation from the Premier League all campaign, they've actually managed to keep the Europa League on track.
Well, I do think, looking at Forest's squad, and certainly going through player for player in the first 11, it's not really a team that should be battling relegation, is it? Like, there's a lot of just real quality there. And why they've ended up there
in that squad.
Depth as well, yeah, and why they've ended up where they are in the league. I mean, the move to force Nuno out and then replace him with someone who was stylistically as radical a change as Ange Postecoglou was probably wasn't very clever, and then that put them into like a negative spiral, and then maybe your confidence is affected a little bit or whatever. But really, this is a squad that should be nowhere near the relegation battle. And I do think there's a strange dynamic. It doesn't quite apply to this because Porto are a European heavyweight. But there is something, it does apply, I think, to an extent to Aston Villa and certainly to Crystal Palace when we're talking about these leagues. When these English teams come to town, they are not really underdogs, even if though we might think of them as English teams who don't traditionally get to have European adventures or this, that, and the other. but because they have the might of the Premier League television money behind them, like they can outspend almost anyone they come up against in these tournaments, and these are some pretty serious squads they bring.
Yeah, what Aston Villa have got is a manager in Unai Emery who's won the Europa League time and time again. They won 3-1 at Bologna, but as you've alluded to, Bologna were their own worst enemies. I thought they played really well for most of the game, but actually the image that really stood out to me was poor old Vincenzo Italiano, the coach, with his head in his hands after they gave away the second goal, because they'd already had the goalkeeper flap at a corner for Ezri Konsa's opener. And then the second Villa goal is just them trying to bring the ball out from the back, giving it away, and just a simple finish. And then after Bologna had got a fully deserved goal right towards the end from Jonathan Rowe, who was outstanding, then they allow Ollie Watkins to be completely free to make it 3-1 with virtually the last kick.
Yeah, I think as a side note, I think this was for Jonathan Rowe a little bit of a calling card. I think it does get noticed a little bit more when you play against big Premier League teams in these sort of tournaments, and he certainly showed in this game that he's got something to bring against opponents like that. I think that was a performance by him that I think will have been noticed by quite a few Premier League managers and sporting directors. But you're right, they passed the ball well, they created a lot of openings, but Villa are canny, and they were also the recipient of some good fortune, I think. It was some pretty baffling defensive mistakes by Bologna in this game as well.
Jean-Philippe Mateta's back in the good books at Crystal Palace because not only has he scored a couple of goals today against Newcastle to give Palace a 2-1 win, but he was also excellent against Fiorentina, 3-0 win. I must admit, yes. I've backed Palace for quite some time to win the Conference League. I think they should win the Conference League, given the resources they have, given the manager they have in Oliver Glasner, who's already won the Europa League with Eintracht Frankfurt. He's won the FA Cup, of course, the Community Shield with Palace. So I do see them as favourites, but I didn't see 3-0 coming against a Fiorentina team that's, even though they've struggled in Serie A, they've got a great record in this competition.
Yeah, but again, I want to be clear on this. I was a bit of a party pooper when West Ham made it to the final and won this tournament, because I don't think the Premier League should be in this. The Premier League team should be in this, Kevin Hatchard. I think
that's fair. I think that's fair because Chelsea dominated it last season, and the resources they have dwarf everybody in that competition. So I get that completely. But for West Ham fans, it means a hell of a lot, right?
Well, and this is the thing, and I would never, if you're a West Ham fan who went to Prague and had an amazing time out and made great memories, I'm obviously not belittling that in any way, and it'd be the same for Palace if they get to a final. That's one of those that's why you support football, to have those, or that's why you support a club and invest time and money, because you want to have these experiences, and good luck to them. But I just think the point of this tournament as a third tier European tournament is to give teams from leagues where there is not that much money, where you cannot build these teams because you don't have millions being pumped in, to give teams from those countries a chance to have these European adventures as well. So if it ends up being just the Premier League teams sort of motoring their way to the final every year, then that would be a little bit of a shame. That said, good performance by Palace against absolutely a competent Fiorentina team, and I would fully expect them to win the tournament, to be honest.
As I often do, I'm going to fly the flag for German football unashamedly because Freiburg got a fantastic 3-0 win against Celta Vigo in the first leg of their Europa League quarter-final, and Mainz got a 2-0 win against Strasbourg in the first leg of their Conference League quarter-final. Both of those clubs have really built patiently. They look after their fans. They do things in what I believe is the right way. It's great to see them having success. Neither of them, Freiburg nor Mainz, have ever won a major trophy. We're getting towards the end of the US Masters, potentially. Let's get to Augusta and get the latest from talkSPORT's Sean O'Brien.
Yes, Rory McIlroy is one hole away from becoming a back-to-back Masters champion, but he's making it stressful He's 2 shots clear at 13 under par. Scotty Scheffler is in the clubhouse on 11 under par. He can do no more. Justin Rose's challenge faltered in the end. He's done at 10 under par. And Cam Young's out there with McIlroy, but he's 3 shots back. So Rory McIlroy just needs a bogey on the 18th hole to become a back-to-back Masters champion. He steps onto the 18th tee and he slices his drive so far right into the trees. So he's just walking up to it now. The plan will be to get back in play, pop it on the green and take 2 putts. But this is the Masters. We've been here before with Rory. It is never straightforward. And guess who's waiting for him at 11 under par? It's world number 1, Scotty Scheffler. So the prospect of a playoff between the world number 1 and 2 is not out of the question, but Rory still just needs a bogey on 18 to get it done. You can follow our live blog on talksport.com.
The Masters on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Get an extra £500 when you part exchange your car.
Can Rory rescue himself? You're going to find out after the break on Trans-Europe Express.
I mean, who's left there now? Only Alisson, Van Dijk. I think that's probably it, isn't it?
Just on Andy Robertson, do you think he'll stay in the Premier League?
I think he can.
Yeah.
I think he can. I think they're a.
I'd have him at Tottenham. I wish we got him.
Well, you were linked with him in January, weren't you?
Yeah.
You know, and the writing was. It's not the biggest surprise in the world, is it? That he's leaving.
No, it's not a surprise.
What
but
happened in January?
It made us, think about left backs, right?
Yeah.
You think about the great left backs of the Premier League, and where does he rank?
So when I was outside with Ryan, the producer, and then Ryan said there was a period where he was the best left back in the world, and I went, "What? What you on about? Best left back in the world?" And he said he's best in the top 3 of the Premier League, and I'm like, I'm not sure he is. And then you look at the names that you think, you know what? Actually, maybe he is in this conversation.
I think he is. Look, Ashley Cole for me, obviously, yes, he's the greatest.
He's out on his own.
He's out on his own, and then after that, you look at the other left backs. They're at Patrice Evra.
In terms of numbers, let me just tell you now, Andy Robertson's Premier League appearances, 373. 13 goals, 69 assists. Now, that is insane for a fullback. Trent's numbers aren't dissimilar from what I can gather.
Yeah.
I haven't got them, but just looking at left backs here. He outstrips, John Arisa has 30, but he is, the closest to him is Ashley Cole on 31. That's the closest. He's got 69.
Yeah. I think he's in the top 3 greatest Premier League left backs.
Well, yeah, go on. Who's the other one then?
Patrice Evra.
It's competition time, and it's a big one. We've got 2 tickets for the Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Championships on Monday, July the 6th, up for grabs. You'll be watching the world's best from official Wimbledon Devonshire seats on centre court. You'll also have exclusive Devonshire Lounge access throughout the day. It's the perfect place to soak up the atmosphere between matches. For your chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or you can call 0343 418 7260. Lines close on the 16th of April at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone. if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. So for your chance to win, text WIN to 83338 now. And we are going to bring you the latest on Rory McIlroy's bid to win the Masters for the second straight year in just a moment. He did manage to get out of the trees, but I can tell you that second shot ended up in the bunker. So we'll give you an update on that. But we're going to go around the leagues. And Lars, let's start with Turkey because there have been a few twists and turns in the title race there.
Well, there has been big result in Turkey this evening, actually, with Galatasaray hosting Kocaelispor at home, which is a game you would expect him to win very, very comfortably. And they did not. They were in the lead for a long time. It looked very comfortable. But in the second half, Croatian forward Bruno Petkovic, who you might recognize from World Cups and Euros, this very tall forward for Croatia, who's kind of slow, but technically very good. He's
European
quite an
football nerd
player.
Legend, Bruno Petkovic.
I mean, he's someone who's built like a target man, but plays like a number 10. He's a very strange player. He has found his way to a mid-table club in Turkey, as these sort of strange characters sometimes do. And he scored an equaliser against Galatasaray, which means Galatasaray drop a point, which means they are now just 2 points ahead of Fenerbahce, who won. And because they play each other between now and the end of the season, it is now really in Fenerbahce's hands. If they win out Fenerbahce, including that derby on the 26th of April, then the title will be heading to the Asian side of the Bosphorus. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that has to happen between now and then, but quite a development that is, and especially given, like, I don't want to go this already, but what must Jose Mourinho be thinking? Because it was very much suggested, I mean, he didn't say this out loud, but reading between the lines, there's conspiracies against us and we're fighting all the dark forces. And I see many things that smell bad that I don't like in Turkish football. If he then leaves and they win the title, that's a big L for the special one, as the young people might say.
And talking of Mourinho, he is still moaning, isn't he? Let's move over to Portugal. He's moaning about his Benfica players.
Yeah, he is. So he's in a strange position at Benfica because they have a pretty good shot at going undefeated through the season, but they do not have a shot at winning the league. This is the thing. They keep drawing. This is the situation they're in. Like 29 games into the season, they've got 20 wins, 9 draws, and 0 defeats, but they keep dropping too much point. But Mourinho is incredibly unhappy with his players and their efforts. He has complained that there are players who are not trying hard enough, who are just kind of taking it too easy, and saying that there are players that don't want it enough. Like they have it in the bank account, but they're not passionate enough, and it makes him very sad, he says.
Let's get over to Augusta. Let's get the latest from talkSPORT's Sean O'Brien. Rory McIlroy going for that second straight golden jacket. Extraordinary drama, and it looks as though he might be able to do it. Let's hear from Sean O'Brien.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Kev, it'd been far too stress-free for Rory McIlroy. Everyone was missing putts. He only needed a bogey on 18, but then came the stress. He stepped onto the 18th tee. He swiped one right. He had to get the crowd to move so that he could play his second shot around the trees and hook one into the bunker. And then he was short-sided. He had a really, really steep slope to overcome, but he did manage to pop it onto the green, and he's got about 15 feet and he needs to take 2 putts from there. It's a putt he knows pretty well, Rory, because last year when he ended up finally ending that Masters drought, he did have a putt from about 4 feet on the same line, which he missed. So he knows that this one's a little bit right to left down the hill, and we're just watching him kind of get everything out the way. He's been very, very cautious over everything. He's been quite kind of calculated today. Usually Rory's quite an instinctive player. He really just kind of sees the shot and then plays it, but he's just making sure, kind of second guessing himself almost. But it's been a brilliant round of golf. I mean, there was a wobble in the middle of the front 9, but from that point onwards, He was absolutely incredible right up until the 18th tee when he had a little bit of stress. But now he's got 2 putts from about 12 feet to become a back-to-back Masters champion. Sends it on its way. And it just slides by on the right-hand side. But he's going to kick that one in. And Rory McIlroy, he's going to mark it. He's going to let Cam Young get out of his way. But with that one hanging over the hole, I think we can safely say that Rory McIlroy is the 2026 Masters champion. He sinks to his knees. His dad's in the crowd looking on. He's got his head in his hands. His wife, Erica, is behind the green. His daughter, Poppy, looking on as well. This is just every bit as emotional as when he finally completed the career Grand Slam in 2025. This place means so much to him. It's been somewhere that has haunted him for years. It was his living hell, and now he runs the place and calls it a paradise. And after years of anguish at Augusta, it's going to be like London buses for Rory McIlroy. Augusta chairman Fred Ridley is going to be the one to have to put the green jacket on him because there's no previous champion to stand behind him. It's going to be McIlroy. He's going to become just the 4th golfer in history to go back-to-back at the Masters, joining Jack Nicklaus, Sir Nick Faldo and Tiger Woods. And that's a nice little moment there. Cam Young manages to tidy up for par to finish on 10 under par. Just to remind you of the rest of the leaderboard, Scotty Scheffler finished on 11 under. He was waiting for Rory in a playoff if he double bogeyed this hole. But here it comes. He taps in, and Rory McIlroy is the 2026 Masters champion. He's already got the Grand Slam, and with this being his 6th major, it puts him quite rightly on a pedestal as the greatest player of his generation. McIlroy does it twice. The Northern Irishman is your 2026 Masters champion.
The Masters on talkSPORT with Arnold Clark. Buy a used car and get a free 2-year service plan.
So an extraordinary achievement from Rory McIlroy, winning the Masters in back-to-back years. And Lars, he fought so hard to do it. He completed that Grand Slam, and it has just freed him up, hasn't it? Extraordinary.
It is. I was going to say, I mean, I know we do the football, Kevin, but this is a remarkable thing just from a sports psychology perspective, because this is a course that sort of haunted him for so many years, and he had so many near misses. I mean, I recommend everyone watch the very excellent documentary that's out on Amazon now about his struggles to finally win the Masters, and really goes into how badly it scarred him when he had a collapse there as a young man.
Makes this all the more extraordinary, doesn't it, really?
But it's extraordinary how I wouldn't say it's ever looked easy, but I've been following this tournament, and just a spoiler alert, I've had the tournament on a second screen since Lyon Lorient finished up earlier in the show.
You've not been laser focused, how dare you?
Yeah, but it is remarkable how, if you compare his body language in this round to last year, the difference it makes is extraordinary, and how much of a weight that was off his mind to have done it before. And it is, from a psychological perspective, super interesting, and what an achievement by him to do it. Though I'm supposed to say, not raining on his parade now, but Justin Rose getting that close 2 years in a row in his mid-40s, kind of hope he gets another shot at that next year, because what an athlete he is as well.
Yeah, he's come very, very close indeed. There'll have to be a documentary about him as well. Just to finish off with Portugal, you mentioned Mourinho. I rudely interrupted you. Results elsewhere for Porto. Porto were pushing hard. They had a game tonight.
Yeah, they beat Estoril 3-0, which means they stay 5 points ahead of Sporting at the top of the league, Sporting having a game in hand. So that's not completely sewn up just yet, but it's looking good for Porto. I mean, thing to remember about the Portuguese league, and as Andy will have told us many, many times, is the margins are so fine, because these guys, they just don't, like the top 3 in Portugal, they've lost 2 games between them in the league this season. Porto have got 1 defeat.
I mean, that is amazing, really, when you think about it.
Porto have got 1 defeat in 29. Sporting have got 1 defeat in 28, and Benfica have got no defeat in 29. That's the top 3 for you. They just don't lose games. So that means when you do have a 5-point lead, it's a pretty significant lead. Now you'd expect that to become a 2-point lead when Sporting probably wins the game they have in hand. We'll see.
Yeah, it has been an amazing title race, and as you say, Benfica not lost a single game, but look as though they're not going to
managed to win that league and are going to fall quite short. Netherlands, just quickly, there was a win for Ajax.
Yeah, Ajax beat